Okay, so you said that because the two Jims were discarded, the Republicans no longer trusted the process, right?
Yep, but rightly or wrongly, I'm going to say wrongly, but that's the issue, is that popular sentiment at the time was that they wanted them on there.
Oh, so you agree that
Okay,
it was
but
wait, well, just to be clear, I'm sorry, before Dev, I know you want to take over, but just so you don't even buy that argument that
No, not particularly.
Oh, okay.
But the American people at the time wanted them on there to be able to trust it even slightly.
According to who?
Well, because we've seen the fallout of it.
How do you know the follow is because Jim Jordan was on it? Just because people like you don't like the conclusion?
I don't care about the conclusion.
So wait a second. So are you saying that if Jim Jordan was allowed on the committee, then people would have trusted it, and then they would have trusted the evidence of it, and then they would have trusted the conclusions from it, and then maybe Trump would have lost?
The argument, no, that's like Destiny said. There's a lot of issues with the
right. Yeah.
There's multi-factor.
In the ethics case against like Santos or Gates, should Santos or Gates be a part of the ethics committee against Santos or Gates?
Should Hunter Biden be the vice chair of
I don't know about that. So here's the issue, right?
Hold on, answer my question.
No, but I'm about to. So the issue being is that we view things as guilty until proven innocent. So you're asking to remove somebody from it.
Not on the jury until proven guilty.
So you mean okay? So you mean the ethics subcommittee for an investigation is what you mean?
Yeah, I'm asking for the investigation.
I don't know about that.
Should Gates be on that subcommittee?
I don't think that would have been a national crisis level thing. So no, probably not.
Okay, so why, as a category, should Gates not be able to investigate Gates, but the Jims can investigate the Jims?
It's not about whether or not he can investigate himself, because they can. The majority chair of the committee can just override whatever he does. It's more about the fact is that
no, wait, that's not true.
What?
I'm sorry, Ernest, but that's not true. No, how the congressional committees work is that as long as 1/3 of the total sitting chairs agree, then they can subpoena someone.
Also, if they start ignoring things he says, people are going to say, oh, look, see, now you'd be arguing, well, look, now it's not credible because they're just like trying to ignore what Jim Jordan's trying to do. Or just to block things, you're going to say, oh, well, he's blocking things, and so now we know that it's illegitimate.
You're ascribing a position I don't hold. I'm just
well, because we're in an unfalsifiable hypothetical world where we can't prove or disprove anything, so.
Yeah, sure, probably. I don't know. Whatever you need to feel better.
Whatever you need to feel better.
So looking at this Eric Holder stuff, so Eric Holder was never even charged with a crime. So I don't know why this was brought up.
They declined to bring charges after, he's held in contempt and they declined to bring charges, which is different than a pardon. The closest thing would probably be H.W. Bush pardoning the Iran-Contra people after Reagan.
That definitely, that's another one, yeah.
That's the closest thing to the criminal co-conspirators.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, they just refused to charge him, so they wouldn't even gotten to that process. Same one with A.G. Garland at the moment, where he's being held in contempt of Congress and not being charged by.
Yeah, but wait a minute.
Not being charged by who, real quick? Not being charged by who?
His own DOJ.
You mean himself, right?
Garland. Yeah, so President Biden claimed executive privilege, and right now Congress would have to take that to court to have it litigated. So
you can't claim executive privilege over matters like that.
Over matters like what?
They can. I mean, they do.
Wait. Over matters like what? I want to hear the answer. Don't save him. Over matters like what?
I'm pretty sure you cannot claim executive privilege over material that would make you look bad. I think it's one of the ones. Hold on. Stop freaking
privilege. Out. What? Sorry, Hardeman.
Oh, let him go, please.
I think there's criteria that was laid out about executive privilege because it's not an actual core power thing, and that there's an actual process to it.
What? You said core power like that's a real thing. Just to be clear, there's no such thing as core power. But
okay, well, whatever you want.
That is precisely what executive privilege is for. Number one. Number two, no, you're right. It's not a constitutional power, but it's a standing tradition for decades. And number three, there's a remedy.
Century.
If President Biden claims executive privilege and Congress disagrees with the executive privilege assertion, you take the president to court, and then a court decides. That hasn't happened. So even if you want Merrick Garland held in contempt and you want the DOJ to prosecute its own attorney general, there's no basis for that now. You'd have a point if a court of jurisdiction said that this is an invalid claim of executive privilege, but that's not what's happened.
Yeah, there's the history of executive privilege being one, military matters and diplomatic secrets and foreign affairs, information made confidential by statute, 3, information relating to a pending litigation and investigative files and reports.
Wait, real quick. For what you're reading, just real quick, I'm just curious. Can you just screenshot exactly what you're reading and put it in general chat? I just want to see if you're reading from ChatGPT. I'm so curious.
ChatGPT. For sure, be ChatGPT.
Yo, if Brian Tyler Cohen wants in, he can get in.
Put it in general.
FYI. Okay.
Yeah, I don't use ChatGPT.
Do you use Claude?
What's that?
It's Rob Noor's proprietary ChatGPT clone.
Yeah, I no idea. I'm just pulling stuff from the Legal Institute, Cornell University. It has other United States court cases where it derives its opinion from. I think it's
the nifty thing about executive privilege is it's a kind of gray area where we don't really know yet what it fully applies to. There are some things we know it doesn't apply to. Yes, exactly.
Well, but there's overview for it, right?
There's a process.
In the court.
There's a process for it, and which is why when they asked for that, because it wasn't underpinning litigation and that the case had already been closed by not recommending charges, it didn't qualify for executive privilege anymore.
What didn't?
That's
what?
who?
The whatever the thing that Biden was that you guys brought up.
Eric Holder or what?
No, somebody said something about Biden. That's right.
What executive privilege wouldn't qualify if?
The thing that Congress was asking for, the Heard tapes or whatever the fuck it was, and that AG Barr was held in contempt for, and then citing executive privilege. The problem is that executive privilege does not apply to that scenario.
According to who?
We just look at the link, and how this is how they citing multiple cases and how this was established.
Okay. Presidents have more than once had occasion to stand in a protective relation to their subordinates, assuming their defense in litigation brought against them or pressing litigation on their behalf, refusing a congressional call for papers which might be used in their absence from the seat of government to their disadvantage, challenging the constitutional validity of legislation deemed detrimental to their interests. Presidents throughout our history have attempted to spread their own official immunity to their subordinates by resisting actions of the courts or of congressional committees to require subordinates to divulge communications from or to the president of the to the president that presidents choose to regard as confidential. Only recently, however, has the focus of the controversy shifted from protection of presidential or executive interest to protection of the president himself, and the locus of the dispute shifted to the courts. Where in this that you linked? Where is this obvious answer?
I have to scroll down to the bottom. It's highlighted. I don't know. It's Section 5.
Congressional access. You're highlighting a footnote that you've given me.
Congressional access to executive branch information.
Also, Trump has claimed way broader executive privilege in his federal cases.
And then he'd be wrong.
Well, okay, but it's held up, right? In the sense that
I don't know.
In the same sense, the contempt charges against Barr and then Holder and now this, executive privilege is it's pretty sweeping at this point. We've not firmed up the boundaries of what it applies to and what it doesn't. We have not litigated these things, and so it's holding up right now.
And also, real quick, even in the footnote that you gave, these were 5 different categories of executive privilege. You're citing 3, saying information relating to pending litigation and investigative files and reports.
Yeah, so that would be where it would fall under if the investigation was still open by her.
Quick, I'm jumping.
Wait, could it not be number 4, information relating to internal government affairs, privilege from disclosure in the public interest?
Possible, but the issue is that IG reports and stuff like that and information collected from there are falling under the judiciary oversight. So
that might be your opinion, but I mean, then if you think that, then take it to court.
Correct. It could be.
Then but they didn't take it to court for it, so.
I would typically what happens when the executive asserts executive privilege, Congress drops it, and that's happened in all of these cases we're talking about. So we could litigate it, but we're not. They just drop it.
Times at this point. I don't trust typicality in any argument now, especially with the ruling of criminality being immune for the president.
Can I just say, okay, Artemis, I appreciate your stamina here. It's
I've done worse.
Okay, it's amazing. I mean, look,
Wait, hold on. To be clear, his stamina is not amazing. He just lies, and then we have to spend like 45 minutes trying to debunk the bullshit.
That's what you
and then he just
claiming,
says, and then he goes,
that's
"Oh,
not,
you're just a debate, bro.
true.
You're the one lying." Ha ha. Like everything he's just said. There's
You are
nothing
lying.
impressive about a single thing. Really, what have I lied about?
You've lied about the. We have to go over the 3 things you've already lied about.
What? That your job? That you probably are lying about your job? Like an actual material thing I've lied about in this conversation. What was I even wrong about?
Well, the issue being is that you've asked me questions. I've stated my recollection of the events, and then you go find information and then accuse me of lying. There's no way to assert a lying statement from that because it's fundamentally, I'm always going to be on the back foot for this conversation.
I asked you why you thought the J6 report was not good or what you disagreed about it, and you've given me all these different things about like.
I'm not going to recognize your argument how I am lying or bad faith.
Okay.
Because of that.
Gotcha.
I'm always going to be on the back foot because you're asking me everything and you're not asserting an actual opinion. So I don't recognize
What are your actual opinions as far as JN6 goes? Because I thought you were advocating like a positive argument that you think the J6 investigation was bullshit because Jim Jordan wasn't on there, but you're saying that that was the sentiment of Republicans.
I always argue from how things are viewpoint from the population because I don't vote.
No, you argue about how you think they're viewed from the population because you don't have any polling data to support anything what you're saying. You're going by your own personal vibes. Yeah,
you're the political guru here. Yeah.
No, I'm just stating a fact.
The general public is
when you
really
say the general public believes a thing, when you say the general public believes a thing, then you would source like a poll or you would show like news articles or something.
Why would I need to do that?
Because you're not God? I don't know, because you're not like the collective, you're not the buggers from
I'm sure that worked out well for you, huh?
Wait, Artemis, do you not feel obligated to provide any evidence for any claim that you make? I'm baffled by this because
no,
you've had more,
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I don't even know what that insult was.
The issue being is that all he's doing is arguing these things, and I'm not saying them.
If he disagrees with the claim that you're making, what do you expect him to do?
Not try to insinuate that I'm lying constantly when he's always. Never mind.
I don't think it's an insinuation. I think it's just
shut the fuck up, Gibbles. I don't care what you think. So, anyways, the answer is the answer is I take it from the viewpoint of the popular sentiment of MAGA and conservatives on how things are done. There doesn't need to be an actual physical widespread study on it.
Do you think
there's any world in which the MAGA people would have been happy with any report that came out of the January 6th Commission? Do you really think that?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Then why are we arguing about this?
Because I'm arguing that the questions, comments, and concerns that they have laid out would be far less amenable to the moderates, I would say, and there would have been a lot less of a accusation of persecution involved.
I don't think you're ever going to get away from the accusations of persecution when you're investigating people who are complicit in something that was bad, right? Like, well,
the issue is it doesn't matter if you have a fringe microcosm of people claiming it. The issue is that majority of the people, almost half the population of the United States believe Trump is justified in his actions on Jan 6th. After 4 years.
Artemis.
Hold
on, that's not true. That however half the people think he was justified. That's just not true.
So Artemis, just real quick here. So, what do you personally think about the results of the January 6th committee?
That all of the retards that showed up at January 6th deserve what they got.
No. I mean the validity of the evidence that was produced by the committee. What do you think?
I have no real actual opinion on it.
Okay.
Okay. As much as I love the concept of maglocks, I have a question. So I've been mad at Wick for not letting me in for so long. Dev, in your closing statement on the Hunter Biden thing, which was the panel earlier, if anybody remembers still, you said something about you're fine with when one side has forsaken some principle and has gone beyond norms. You're fine with the other side coming back and going as far as they have to show them, that's not okay, but no further. And I was curious to, now that Josiah's here, this is perfect. These are the two people I wanted to ask this, to Stephen and Josiah, if you agree with that, because I'm not convinced that you guys would agree with the no further thing. It seems like you guys are fine with escalation. So I was just curious what you thought of that framing, because I thought it was good. I liked what Dev said. So, yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for Steven. I'm not particularly married to the proportionality of response. Somebody who's more of an ethicist.
Jesus Christ, look at this man's fucking set.
Tit for tat.
Oh my
I think
God,
probably make
he looks
the argument
beautiful.
that you have to collect some interest in your response.
He's got little trees back here. I like the colors. A little bright on the top right. Oh my goodness.
So how do we ratchet back down the tensions that we're currently at?
It would require Republicans taking the first, second, and third steps towards doing that.
So there's nothing that we can do at all?
No, I categorically reject any initial disarmament in the norm breaking or the.
This is how we get
Is there anything we can do?
Hold on. This is how we get Israel Palestine basically.
Wait, no. So just to be clear, for Josiah, he's saying you reject the as far as they have but no further thing. You wouldn't hold to that.
No. I'm open to that. I'm not married to we have to hit them harder than they hit us. I just think we have to hit back.
Right now, here's the issue. There are things that we can do that are so powerful that are still technically legal that we haven't even begun to explore. The Democrats haven't even explored their legal options. So I think that those should be things that should be considered, heavily considered. And then absent that, I don't know, we look at that. We look at it next. So like the ethics thing or like term limits for Supreme Court justices, I think that's an incredibly powerful proposition. And you don't have to accept that, but then we pack the court after. Fuck them.
Okay. I guess I'm still seeing where you ratchet back down tensions, right? So like
no. Ratcheting down only works when the other side is willing to do it. But you have to understand this, okay? Hold on, because this is what people don't understand, okay? If a kid cries in a store and you give him a fucking candy bar, he will never stop crying for candy bars. He never meets you halfway. There's never been a 7-year-old who's like, Mom and Dad, you guys have given in so much when I'm a piece of shit at the store for giving me candy bars, and I'm going to actually stop that behavior. That never happens, right? Why is that supposed to happen with the Republicans?
One of the problems. Hold on, if I may.
Wait, let him answer that. Why would that ever happen with the Republicans?
I don't think that every single Republican at all times is acting as a child in the candy store. I think what many of them are, but some of them are like Mitch McConnell, like Pence, like Nikki Haley, all of these people, some of whom admittedly are now part of our coalition and not part of Chris Christie, part of the MAGA coalition. But these kinds of people do exist, and it is possible to, as we've seen in the case of Nikki Haley and Chris Christie, both of whom did reasonably well, didn't succeed, but did reasonably well in that primary very recently.
Okay, listen, that's great. That's great, okay? There are times where I do polls in my chat to figure out like which movie was better than another movie or to figure out like what, game we want to play or whatever. I don't give a fuck about a popularity poll. My question is
wait, yes, you do care about a popularity poll.
Let me know when you're done with this. I'm going to tell you I don't care. No, it's not.
Popularity poll is democracy.
I don't care about democracy. I care about measurable actions that the government is taking to either strengthen our institutions or destroy our institutions right now. I don't care if
I would say that democracy,
Stop. I don't. This is childish. I don't care. No, I don't care. Show me what measurable actions people like Nikki Haley have done to strengthen our government or protect us from the MAGA onslaught.
Well, Destiny, to be fair, Nikki did criticize Donald Trump before endorsing and voting for him.
Okay, that is true. She did criticize him.
Okay.
Before endorsing and voting for him.
You're like throwing out the people who didn't go far enough and didn't end up endorsing coming all the way over to our side of the aisle. That's true. There are people in that category. There are also people who did, like Liz Cheney, come all the way across the aisle, and literally Liz Cheney endorsed the same person as Bernie Sanders.
That's fine. Listen, I don't want to be. Right? I'm going to go full Vosh. I'm going to go full Vosh. Okay. There are a lot of Jews, okay, in Auschwitz and in other concentration camps across the world. There are a lot of Jews who none of them thought, man, nobody really came and intervened, but I'm sure there were a lot of people that really wanted to, and they had a lot of really harsh words.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are people intervening. I'm saying that Liz Cheney crossed the aisle. I'm saying that people like Nikki Haley didn't cross the aisle, but certainly threatened to cross the aisle.
These are people who are.
I'm saying that it is good to encourage that kind of behavior within the Republican caucus.
No, it's not.
Quibbles, it's not enough.
We don't have time. It's not enough.
You're saying it's not enough. We lost by 1.5%.
No. We lost a president. We lost a presidential seat. Just think about the state of the world. Would anything have even happened the way that it did in Iraq and Afghanistan if Gore was president instead of Bush? Do you know? Who knows? Would anything have even happened with criminal immunity if Amy Coney Barrett, who doesn't write like an insane person, okay, like fucking Roberts and Thomas, if she would have been on a 5-person Supreme Court, would Trump have criminal immunity if Merrick Garland would have been heard and consented to by the Senate under Obama? Maybe. Would our dealing with the way that the entire world responds to COVID, would that have looked the same under a Democrat president after Obama? If McConnell hadn't said we're going to make him one-term president, we're going to do nothing,
Dude,
right?
You're just asking a bunch of like theoretical history. This is a fun, like,
stop.
YouTube
No.
clip.
You don't know.
I have no idea.
No. You don't know the facts. This is the issue, is you have broad opinions about things, but every single example that I just gave you was an example of Democrats surrendering norms to the Republicans taking, and potentially destroying the world as a result of that. That's what I'm talking about. Gore gave up the election because he believed in the ECA safe harbor. Donald Trump said that they should have broken the entire ECA.
Stop.
Because
Destiny, hold on, stop.
Case, and he
oh my God, Quibble, stop. You're doing bad at this. Okay, Destiny, what should Gore have done?
At the very least, he should have gotten somehow we should have gotten a recount in fucking Florida, like he was entitled to. I don't think the recount finished in Florida.
There was a couple recounts. I was, again, as someone who was an actual adult at the time, right? So probably none of you, but me, I was 18 fucking years old when that happened, right? I watched it, right? I watched the recount happen.
99%.
They began recounts and they paused them. Yeah.
Yes,
they paused them.
They stopped. And that Supreme Court case
stopped the count. They ultimately did still.
I don't believe they know. The Supreme Court stopped it because they were trying to maintain the safe harbor of the ECA. That law was so fucking important. The ECA was so goddamn important to Republicans that they needed to be ready for that December 14th, December 15th deadline for the electors to submit their votes.
I'm saying they based the decision of the election on a partial count, but I'm pretty sure they did eventually count the whole thing.
Why would they have finished?
Yes, but they counted after the election was done.
New York Times paid for the recount to happen after the election was over, just to see. I don't know off the top of my head what the results of that, but the recount was.
I do. Bush ended up winning. It was close, but Bush ended up winning. Yeah.
Well, hold on. No. I've seen several different recounts. They've gone over it a bunch of times, and several of them Gore won.
There were multiple different ways of doing the
that's the problem. Right? Yeah. That was the whole issue.
My understanding is that final recount was stopped, and it was never finished.
No. The official count
was stopped.
The official count was the thing that was actually concluded, and the state of Florida actually accepted. And that was not that was not every single.
No, but they had a right to a recount. A lot of states can auto-trigger recounts if it was within a margin. The vote margin on that election, out of 6 million votes, was like 550 votes. So he had a right to a recount.
Yeah. If I recall,
I don't know why. There's part of me that wants to get into the argument about 2000, but like not really.
No. I'm just showing you. I just want to show you. I just want to show you the difference because people don't understand like what's connected or not. The law that pushed the Supreme Court to making this decision so quickly, the whole argument that Republicans used to say we don't have time to recount was because they were trying to hit the safe harbor from the Electoral Count Act, the same law that Donald Trump saw fit to eviscerate on January 6th, a full month after the electors had already submitted their votes. That's the different standard, and we got nothing for allowing them to do that both times. That's the issue. The first time we lost.
So just real quick, there was a recount that was a machine. Hold on, stop. You guys are getting the facts wrong here. I'm looking up the facts right now. So there was a machine recount that went off. The Supreme Court of Florida decided for a selective manual recount to go in a couple things. They decided it was by a 5-4 decision, right? That's what was stopped.
The selective manual recount, right? Because they were manually recounting in certain counties and not others.
All the recount is just wrong. It's just factually incorrect.
Right. So the thing the Supreme Court intervened on was this unequal
special manual recount that they wanted to put in.
Well, hold on.
Right? They argued about the hanging cats.
The reason why they wanted to do that manual recount was because of the ballots, the weird fucking butterfly.
Yes, that was the whole.
This is why they wanted to do the manual recount. Right?
No, you're right. But to frame it as if they were just stopping all the recounts is just wrong.
They stopped the final recount.
I mean,
The Supreme Court, the SCOTUS decision, when it was handed down, did stop the recounting. Yes. Florida was in the process of manually recounting in some counties. The challenge was that some places were doing this in an unequal way, right? That was making some votes count and some aren't, and some are double counted, and it was wild and it was weird. And so when the Supreme Court decision comes down, it stops the recount and awards it on the basis of the final tally. So yeah, it's weird. It's a weird case. You should read it. It's fun. But most of the justices that were on the court regretted it later on because it ruined the court's reputation.
Had done exactly. Can you lay out, after he lost the Supreme Court case, what exactly did you want for Gore to do?
That was my original question. Yes.
I don't know. I would have to go and look at the time for what your options even are at that point. But I'm just saying that that's an example of that norm was so I don't know if you say norm here. Maybe it was so egregiously upheld that the ECA and these dates were so important to be done counting on these dates. But then when Trump rolls around, all of a sudden they don't matter anymore. That it seems
to be clear, they did matter when Trump rolled around because, to be clear, we still did get the election decided, and it was the same day that it was actually reconferred, whatever the fuck it's called, right? The same day as Jan 6.
Hold on. No. Okay. If I try to kill you, okay, but I fail in murdering you, and then I don't have any criminal prosecution for what I did, you can't say, well, the system worked, I'm still alive, okay? That election, the certification on January 6th was done after being delayed for hours because of a fucking riot led by the president, who to this day asserts that the outcome of that election was fraudulent.
Was outrageous and disgusting and an attack on norms that failed.
Well, an attack on norms and illegal. Attacks on norms and illegal. The norm was not upheld.
I agree with you. I've been agreeing with everything you've been saying about justice for the last hour and a half.
The norm was not upheld. The ECA, he tried to violate it. Pence ultimately didn't do it, and the counting was delayed. The certification of the vote was delayed because of violence led by the president.
Delayed by a couple of hours. That's bad. I wish it hadn't been delayed by a couple of hours. Let's not pretend that the actual ultimate result was not the result that it ought to have been.
And 135 elected Republicans still voted to formally object to the results even after the insurrection. That's how.
Yes, horrible. I agree.
But there are other results that happen.
Electors in 2016 were also bad.
Yes,
I agree.
But there are other results.
To be clear, but it was also bad.
There are other results that happened as a result of these actions. One, we've changed our Constitution. We used to have a provision in our amendment, in the 14th Amendment, that said that if you had engaged in insurrection and you had been a prior oath taker, that you were no longer allowed to run for president again. That's gone. We had to get rid of that to allow Trump to run again. We also changed our interpretation of the Constitution. We've granted brand new criminally immune powers to the president to protect Trump from behavior that he would have been prosecuted for. So those are two outcomes. Those are two direct results from the J6 shit. So to say that everything turned out as it should have been is absolutely not true. We changed our Constitution and we gave the president new powers in order to allow Trump to escape responsibility for his actions.
Yeah, we've removed critical guardrails from the presidency as a direct consequence from what happened on January 6th. But I also want to go back to what the professor and Quibbles were talking about earlier in terms of ratcheting it down. There was an example that jumped out to me from a couple of months ago when you guys were talking about this. So the professor knows about this because we've talked about this a lot, but there's this notion in the Senate Judiciary Committee called the blue slip, and it basically lets senators effectively veto presidential judicial nominees for their home state. So if Senator Quibbles doesn't like President Josiah's judicial nominee, you can say, Mr. President, here's my blue slip. I don't like this guy. Pick somebody else. When Republicans won the presidential election, they won the Senate in 2017, they revoked the blue slip rule for circuit court judges so President Trump could cram through his nominees over Democratic objections. When President Biden won in 2020 and the Senate flipped in 2021, Republicans were pissed that Democrats did not reinstitute that rule. And Sheldon Whitehouse, I'm paraphrasing here, said, you motherfuckers revoked the rule. Now you want us to restore it. We're not going to have a thing where you all get to give the finger to blue slips, but we have to obey them. Not going to happen. 6 months ago, Senator Tom Tillis, a Republican, was furious that Dick Durbin has still not reinstituted the blue slip rule. He said, listen, we have an election coming up. The blue slips need to be restored. Republicans need to they should be able to have a voice in whoever the president nominates for their home states. And when he was reminded, well, you all were the ones who set this precedent. You did this. Tom Tillis was like, well, the important thing about norms is, you have to practice them when it's hard. You guys need to be the one to restore it. I feel like you and the professor would say that's exactly what Democrats should do. Democrats should have 6 months ago restored a norm that Republicans broke when it was convenient and restored it once again when it was convenient for Republicans in the hopes that they would respect this norm when they are in power. That's ridiculous. The only way we ratchet down is if Republicans take the first, second, and third steps. Democrats, as far as I'm concerned,
they're saying the same thing about us, though.
Yeah, but,
right?
but there's a factual difference. There's a
I agree with you.
There's a real
That's
world,
why I don't
right?
vote for Republican. I agree with you. That's why I don't vote for Republicans.
Yeah, but it's not enough to just not vote for them. You also need to fight against them. There needs to be consequences for your behavior. No, not fight against them in the ballot box, but also we need to enact what is legally allowed for Democrats to do. This idea of us like coming across the aisle and be like, oh no, we'll continue to get fucked by you guys while we do our best to like respect norms. No, let them make the first step. That's why I asked earlier, give me an example of a single time in the past 10 years Republicans have done anything to come across the aisle. And the only example I got was, well, on January 7th, there were some people that were like kind of like critical of the behavior.
And your community will also notice that I fight against you when you and Josiah especially are advocating for going steps further, such as packing the court, such as ending the filibuster. And thank God we didn't end the filibuster. And thank God we didn't pack the court, because you imagine the shit that we would have to deal with now if we didn't have the filibuster.
This is underlying every single argument you say. You will never say this, or maybe someday you will. You keep saying you're underlying all of this, okay? And you're pretending that you're in a room, okay, that's 99 degrees, and you're saying, thank God we didn't do that. Imagine how hot it would be in here. Thank God we didn't do that. The temperature would be so big. But the reality is you're in a room with 140 degrees, okay? And you're like on the verge of dying. And you're like, thank God we didn't do this, because the thermostat would be 5 degrees higher. And it's like, motherfucker, we're already boiling. You're insane. The fact that
you keep asking to turn the temperature up when we're boiling. I agree.
No, the temperature's
the answer isn't to ratchet it up, because they ratcheted it up first.
It's not
this
ratcheting it up.
radicalization that keeps going on. Hold on, this is important. We have a case where we have the extremes on both sides, people whispering in people's ears on both sides. It's not all Democrats, not all Republicans. It's extreme on both sides, reciprocally radicalizing each other, pointing to the actions that the other side is doing. Says, see, they did this. We should go a step further because we have to fight it.
What have we gotten?
We're living in the world.
What did we get for respecting norms so far? What did we get for respecting the norms so far?
We got 2018 victories. We got 2020 victories. We got 2022 victories. The only one we lost was the 2024, and we barely lost that.
Before Destiny takes down this, wait a minute. Before Destiny takes you three down this, and I'm happy to explore this with you, can I get an answer from the three of you about the example I provided? Should Democrats, now that they were in power 6 months ago, should they have restored the rule that Republicans broke when it was convenient? Should they have restored that for Republican convenience?
I'm asking you not to break your rules because they did. I'm neutral. I am agnostic on that, Josiah. To answer your question, I'm agnostic on that. But what I am not agnostic on that is what you keep advocating for, which is, look at they broke rules. Let's break these more rules.
Okay, so
that's
here's the
what
question.
I'm against.
Okay, wait. So here's the question. Let's say that. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. The answer is that no, we shouldn't have done that specific action. But there are other actions that we can do.
Why shouldn't we? Can I just real quick before you go on? Can you please clarify? Wait a minute. Can you clarify? You said no. That's not enough for me. Why not? Why not?
Why not? Because I don't think that individual situation would have been a successful ratcheting down. Because that specific situation would not be something that would actually manage to fix on the other side of the aisle. The issues that we should specifically targeting on things that we can manage to do that are not unilateral but are bipartisan kinds of things. So there are certain things that we can say, even if they're just rhetorical and we don't actually successfully get them across the finish line, that are worth saying. So stuff like, hey, Congress members should have to put all of their assets, their liquid assets, into an index fund. We can just demand that. And we probably
this is the most boring, irrelevant thing to our political existence ever, is the fucking trading from fucking Democrats. Who cares?
Steven, I don't know if you're aware of this. We are not going to get anything that we want passed in the next 2 years. So it's a question of what do we decide rhetorically to have congressmen and members of the Senate put forward and hopefully manage to get across the aisle.
I wouldn't even support that. That would be stupid. That would be bad legislation. Why would I give a fuck about who's trading insider in Congress when the richest man in the world just had his own fucking government agency made for him?
I'm sorry. You no longer care about insider trading because Trump is worse?
I no longer care about insider trading from Congress members because I don't want to give a false hollow victory that we managed to do something about insider trading.
It's not a false hollow victory.
It is.
I would like them to not be involved in insider trading.
I just don't see how that ratchets anything down.
moving forward, it wouldn't make the perfect country, but it would be to be like super like woo-woo bullshit about it.
You're talking about Hitler making a rule so that Jews can't use racial slurs in fucking gas chambers. Like, would it be great if nobody used racial slurs? Sure, but do I want the billionaire president who hasn't divested from any of his businesses, who has the richest man in the world running alongside him in his own fucking government department to talk about insider trading? You're crazy. You're insane.
You cannot keep on referring to him as being Hitlerian and then continue to turn around and say, also, by the way, it's still not time to be engaged in military activity.
Why? He can be Hitler. I don't know if they needed to violently overthrow Hitler in 1933 or whatever, or 1935 or whatever. I don't know when the time was where they needed to take violent steps towards it.
Fine. At the very least, we should be like, when earlier I asked you, hey, should we pardon literally all of the Democrats? Your response should have been, yes, we should.
I don't know what you mean by pardon all the Democrats. This is an empty, hollow, governmental, historical. I don't even know what the fuck this is for. Pardon all the Democrats? For what?
Should we have pardoned Obama? Should we have pardoned Clinton? Should we have pardoned literally everyone that could potentially be going after Harris? Everyone.
Should Biden have preemptively pardoned, or should Biden preemptively pardon anybody that Trump might feasibly target for political prosecution? Which is something that's actually currently being debated. If Trump, is threatened to Hillary Clinton go after Obama, should Biden give like some sort of blanket pardon for a 10-year spread?
It's so funny because like even against that, I'm guessing you'd be super against that, right?
Of course I would.
Just to be clear, that blanket pardon, that wouldn't even fucking mean anything. What a worthless, the Democrats could do that, and I would look at it and be like, that's kind of dumb. And it wouldn't even matter because
it's kind of dumb. It's very bad.
No, because it pales in comparison to like one of 50 things that Trump has already done.
My answer to Josiah's question is that no, I don't think the Democrats should do that. When it comes, we've talked about this, when it comes to procedural norms in the Senate, especially, I'm very flexible on that. Right, it's something that they can change their rules if they want, and so I would not think it's necessary. I think you're right. It wouldn't ratchet it down for them to concede after the Republicans have claimed some sort of victory here. I would like it probably in the grand scheme if both parties could agree, oh yeah, that was probably a good thing. We should get it back eventually. Like maybe the Republicans, when they're in power, should get it back.
Ratcheting it down. I tell you what would be ratcheting it down. Now that Republicans are going to be back in control of the Senate, for Republicans to go, yes, we were the ones who broke this rule.
So we're going to reinstate it.
2017. We're going to reinstate
it. Yes, I would advocate for that. Same thing with filibuster. Same thing with filibuster for court appointments.
Do you think Republicans are going to do
that?
No,
absolutely not. Of course not. Because the incentives are not.
That's why I'm not going to vote for them. Yeah.
No, the incentives are wacky. They're not going to do that.
So then, what should Democrats do? This is where Steven and I are always. We end up.
Well, hold on.
Certainly, I will.
This is my question.
Okay. You, Chris, get your question. But it's the same thing we did in 2018, same thing that we did in 2020, same thing that we did in 2022. That's what we should do. What you're advocating for, right, is to do this thing to make us indistinguishable, or make it, let me correct myself because that's not true. Make it harder to distinguish from the average low-info voter between the Democrats and the Republicans. That's what you're advocating for. It's not working. It's what led to our loss. It's what's going to keep losing, and I refuse to just keep losing, Josiah.
It would be that
I refuse to keep losing, and you're in your path. We continue to lose.
We lose.
We are in a wilderness.
Wick would watch in a domestic abuse situation and say, "Hey, battered wife, do not hit your husband back. Do not defend yourself."
Okay, because Trump's bad, I'm going to go beat my wife
might
and say, "Hey, you know what?
With your abusive husband,
lady, right? Girlfriend, lady, whatever I have, right? It's okay. You shouldn't be mad at this. You should be mad at Trump." Look at what Trump's done. Why are you even talking about this? Because look at what Trump has done. Look at what Trump has done to this country. How can you be mad that I'm hitting you over the head right now? Right? You should just not even talk about this. That's what you're advocating for, Josiah.
I'm advocating for defending ourselves politically. You're advocating for unilateral disarmament.
I am not advocating for giving up. I'm advocating for not being stupid.
You're also advocating for. Josiah is advocating for things that make people
Josiah wants this fucking election. I don't give a shit what he's advocating for.
Things more peaceful. And it seems weird, but if you have an area with a whole bunch of people and they're left to their own devices. Sometimes they do bad things. But when you've got an area with police officers and they can kill you if you do bad things, usually that improves the circumstances. Notice how for all of human history, it's usually more organization or more consequences or more people here that are to enact things against you if you act improperly or do horrible things. These are usually things that prevent bad behavior. If Republicans earlier, Eucharist, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Eucharist earlier said, of course Republicans wouldn't do this. And right now, if I was an advisor to a Republican, and Josiah should say the exact same thing, okay? And the Republican were to come to me privately, and he was like, "Should we undo like this blue slip? Should we admit that we fucked up?" I would say, my advice. What would I tell him, Josiah? What would we tell him?
You'd be like, probably break the other blue slip rule for district court judges. Just do it again.
Fucking A, because why not? Why the fuck would you ever? Why would you concede to these weak, limp-dick fucking losers? What the fuck are they going to do? Tweet at you? What are they going to do?
This is why I continue to unaddress, which is kind of frustrating, explain that I'm not advocating that we just throw our hands up and start doing things unilaterally. I'm saying that we should instead demand very publicly that they do certain things that are anti-corruption legislation in Congress, in the Senate, because they are going to have to say no to us or let us get away with it.
Okay, right? I agree with that. As long as that includes every single person that's on a cabinet level position and the president divesting through all of their multi-billion-dollar enterprises. Then I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I would love to put that forward. If you want to have, if Katie Porter tomorrow put that forward, I'd be very happy. And if Ro Khanna also put a separate one that was just for Congress, I'd be happy with that also.
And you and the other 27 people in the House that are supporting it would be ecstatic.
So it's not the 27
This is my
people in the
frustration
House.
here. This is my frustration.
Wait.
Oh my
God.
God.
The purpose of being a senator, the purpose of being a congressman in this political environment, if you are in the minority, is entirely about the bully pulpit. That is all your job is, exclusively for the most part. Yes, okay, there was a couple of committee assignments, sure. But broadly speaking, for the rank and file members of Congress, that's their job. Their job is to be getting us good information so that we can prove, hey, look at this thing that you voted against. Look at this other thing you voted against. And have overwhelming support for those kinds of things. That's what we should be doing, obviously.
Sure, but we're not doing that. Instead, we are having whole panels talking about whether or not the Hunter Biden pardon was okay, or whether or not Joe Biden is too senile around the country, or whether or not we should have had an open primary with Kamala Harris, or whether or not we should have created a slightly smaller hurricane.
We should have had an open primary. If there had been an open primary, almost certainly we would have been slightly better. And given that we only slightly lost, yeah, I think having a primary would have been better.
You wanted to have an open primary. You wanted to have an open primary with months to the election. Donald Trump would even have a fucking debate.
Stephen,
and he'd already lost his last election.
I am not saying that once we had already had the horrible. I mean, I'm pretty sure I was on a debate panel with you. At least it was Josiah. I don't remember exactly who was on it. There was absolutely. I'm not saying that after the first debate with Biden that there would have been an ability to have a proper primary. Of course, there wasn't enough time for that. However, had there been an actual open primary and had Biden admitted earlier, a year back in 2019 or something, or not 2019, excuse me, 2023 or whatever, he had managed to say, "Hey, I'm not going to run again." Yeah, obviously the Democrats would have been in a better position. Of course.
Why do you say, of course, you know that, or you say that, but if they would have done an open primary.
I know that.
That's great.
I'm very confident that's true. Of course you agree. Do you not agree with that?
No, not necessarily, no.
So I want to try to.
Was the first debate?
Eucharist had a question. I'm curious what it was.
I want to try to wrap a couple of things because I find myself in a weird position. I think between I hate being stupid centrist, but between Josiah and Wick in the sense that I do agree. This is one of the reasons it's hard to talk with Josiah.
My side. You're more my side, aren't you? Admit it.
Well, yes.
5% more body mass over on my side of the line.
I'll explain. One of the reasons it's hard to talk with Josiah is I do agree with you that the things that you grab onto. I think you're right that they're qualitatively different when the Republicans do them. But all of this conversation is centering around optics and how it plays out to the voter and the people that we care about getting out to the ballot box. So when the Republicans come back and say, well, it's no big deal what we did to Garland, and it's no big deal what we did getting rid of the filibuster for Supreme Court nominees because they did that with district court nominees first, right? I agree with you. Those are qualitatively different things, but they sell it as if it's, well, we're just doing what they did first. So my question then,
But go
so
ahead.
my question then to the, I guess, pro pardon people, because I agree it is kind of stupid that we're having this whole debate panel about the pardon, right? It's not that big of a deal. I am unwilling to hand wring about the Hunter Biden pardon, even as someone I'm more conservative than not. I'm anti-MAGA, anti-Trump, whatever. But I'm unwilling to hand wring about the Hunter Biden pardon after all the Trump pardons. I think you guys are totally right about that. But I wonder, you're saying like there are tactically things that you can do that are more advantageous than not. Do you think this is one of those? Do you think this is actually something that accomplishes anything? And if not, Stephen, you mentioned like you think there are legal things that Democrats could be doing that they're not yet. So what are those?
Well,
so one, do you think this is actually tactically advantageous?
I'll just say this.
I want to say real quick for Wick, and then you can say I won't even say anything. Just for Wick, falling into the trap is what you want, by the way. Playing by all the norms while they break all of them. That's the trap Republicans want to fall into.
Let's look at history. We don't have to go back.
Go ahead, Josiah.
Yeah, I'll just answer. Listen, let me answer one real quick. Let me answer, and then I'll just say this. I just don't think the pardon makes any meaningful difference.
Does a thing because he thinks he has to, because Republicans kind of pressure him into it. He does this thing that plays exactly into the Republicans' hands so they can use it against us. Thank God we didn't remove the filibuster. They were waiting. They were looking. They were rubbing their hands together with bated breath, like, I hope they get rid of the filibuster.
What happens if we don't? What happens? Let's just grant the premise. What happens if we don't take the bait? What happens if we don't fall in the trap? What happens?
Then we less bad outcomes than what would normally have. Yes.
So
wait, hold on. Am I the government retarded to say it? Can't they just remove the filibuster when the Republicans take over?
Yes, absolutely. Right. Republicans
they could,
vote.
but will they?
Wait, why wouldn't they? You think?
They did it in 2017. Hold on, they did it in 2017.
Do you think
they did?
No, I want to hear this. Wait.
They did do it in 2017.
Do you think they did? You think they have a principled attachment to the filibuster? I just want to hear you say that. You think
they do? McConnell does, absolutely.
Okay.
McConnell won't be leader. McConnell's not going to be leader. Number one.
I'll give you my evidence because I have evidence for this. In 2017,
7 years ago,
right? Trump commanded, ordered, whatever, McConnell to get rid of the speaking filibuster, to get rid of the filibuster, right? That was blocking his legislation. You know what McConnell told him? McConnell told him, no, we're not going to do that, right? So yes, at least McConnell has a principled, at least there is some evidence that he has a principled stance for this, because he told Trump no when they asked him
broke the filibuster. But McConnell broke the filibuster in 2017. He broke
that as a direct response to Harry Reid's actions.
There you go, Stephen. That right there. Wait a minute, Stephen.
Hold on. No, you don't. Okay.
I love this McConnell statement. So just to be clear, he broke it for Gorsuch, okay? And he says, quote, what a great quote. This will be, and Wick is so happy about this quote. He's like, well, see, at least he said this. McConnell says, quote, this will be the first and last partisan filibuster of a Supreme Court justice, end quote.
I don't think any of these people have a firm principled attachment to the filibuster. I do think there are people in the Senate right now who are actively resisting the sort of online MAGA pressure that they're feeling. I think the senators are getting really pissed off about the sort of online campaign that Elon is waging, trying to get them on board with who the Senate majority leader should be, who the cabinet pick should be. Like, I think the Senate, one of the cool things, you've been reading the Federalist Papers, Stephen, I love this, right? One of the cool things about the actual separation of powers is that I think the Senate does have some identity, and I think they are like grating against the pressure that they're feeling from the MAGA base. I think we might see some pushback there. I'm not terribly optimistic, but I wouldn't call it principled. I would just say it's self-interested in the way that the system is designed. Yeah. But I still want answers to my questions, right? Do you think this is actually an advantageous thing to do? And if not, to this broader question, what are the legal things they should be doing, right, that they aren't doing yet?
I think the pardon's I think President Biden pardoning Hunter is a non-issue. Everybody says, it's going to open the floodgates for Trump. Trump was going to do what Trump's going to do anyway, and that's it.
And the worst case scenario is a neutral. It's like nothing changes. In the best case scenario, at least we take Hunter Biden off the table for 50 million more fucking Jim Jordan congressional jerk-off sessions over him.
Although, actually, Stephen, no, what's funny is now Comer and Jim Jordan are making the rounds. Well, now Hunter Biden can't plead the fifth because he's taking the pardon, so we might have further investigations. They're not going to let that 9-inch dick go like they are.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, can we have some House committee where we bring in all the people that Trump pardoned and have them come and testify? Can Roger Stone then come in and testify and no longer plead the fifth? Can we do that?
I would love that.
We should have done that, and we should do that the next time we have power. I agree.
So I agree that it's like a neutral in terms of Trump's behavior. I don't think this changes the incentives for Trump at all. But do you think optically, like this, like if you're thinking about like what does this look like? I agree with whoever said earlier the problem that really grated them was the promise, not the actual act of the pardon. But the going back on I promise not to do it. Yeah. So optically, when it comes to voters, when it comes to what we can justify publicly of our actions, right? Trump was going to do what Trump's going to do. I agree. But when it comes to time for him to say, here's why I'm justified in doing this because he did that back there, I think that does change things in a way. Am I wrong?
I think it looks bad.
I didn't get to say this on the panel, but I want to be clear. I would have done the same thing.
No one cares because you're doing it for a cuck reason because he's your son. No one cares about that, okay? We're not talking about that. That's such a cop-out fuck answer. No one cares, okay? Hold on. I think that it does look bad, but I think it looks bad because of how we present it, okay? Because we present it as this retreating from having any type of morality, and it's like, oh, well, it was his fucking son, and maybe he was fucking just such an old fucking man. You know what it should have been? It should have been a strong statement against Republicans raping the norms judicially and prosecutorially of this fucking country. And it should be, the answer should have been, right? I'm going to pardon my son against a new FBI head who wrote a fucking child's book where Donald Trump is the king and talks about the usurpers coming after his fucking power. Okay? That should have been the answer. It shouldn't have been the cucked position of like, well, I'm going to pardon, blah, blah, blah. It should have been, yeah, I am pardoning him because these investigations have been insanely partisan, insanely fucking corrupt, and Jim Jordan can fucking expand his dick long enough to go and fuck himself up the ass with it. That should have been the answer.
Biden did say that the reason he was pardoning him because the DOJ has been weaponized and against him. So
that's great. And the entire liberal media is out here. The entire liberal media is out here crawling around trying to figure out how we're going to fucking sell it to the American public.
I think
they should not have added that in there.
How to deciding how to sell it to the public is important. It matters.
And I agree. And it should be sold the way that I said it. Not this, well, if I'm his dad, so I would do it.
Well, Wick, it's pretty much how I said it, a few hours ago, is that you have to do what they do to you, right? So that's how you sell it.
I disagree with that mindset. I think that leads to disaster.
So it can if you go too far. It can if you go too far.
Definitionally, what you're saying, definitionally, when you say you do to them,
2024 election.
When you say you do to them what they do to you, that leads to disaster. Definitionally, you're wrong. Tit for tat is how every evolutionary system in the world has developed, and the idea that you allow somebody
it's also
to do
how
something...
we got to Israel Palestine and that shit show. Tit for tat, both sides.
If you
saying,
say
the other side's doing shit to us, so we got to do shit to them. That's exactly the mindset that got us there. Did it work?
This is a bad analogy for 50 million reasons, but the tit for tit for no response is how we get World War II.
Yes. So Wick, when it comes to like the kind of gay game theory tit for tat stuff, what you basically need is you need to have tit for tat, but you also need like a forgiveness mechanism so that you don't have Israel Palestine, right? So you have to hit them when they hit you, but you also have to have a space where you can shake hands again. But only if they're willing to do it.
I don't disagree.
So you need both of those things.
Therefore, perhaps anti-corruption legislation put forward by the Democrats and likely turned down by many of the Republicans, but not all of the Republicans.
Wait, can I hold on? Did you support Bernie Sanders in 2024 as well, or just in 2020 and 2016?
In 2024? He didn't even run in 2025.
Were you one of the people saying there should have been an open primary so Bernie Sanders could? So it was 2020 and 2016. Would you have supported Bernie Sanders in the open primary in 2024 if he would have ran?
He's super old. Part of the reason that there had to be an open primary is because he was super old. I probably might have gone for Waltz. I don't really know exactly what I voted for.
Just this fixation on the anti-corruption legislation is just such a lip service to nothing. It doesn't...
Steven, you're talking about lip service. We are in the minority right now. It's all about lip service. You're talking like your whole thing was you just went on a tirade about like how we can position this and do the exact same thing that we did, but position it differently so that it looks better to the American people. I don't know if you're aware of this. This is politics. We're talking about politics. It's about how you position things. It's about what you do from the bully pulpit.
Do you guys think we can win
right now
with just the Democratic base? Just Democrats. Only Democrats show up, and we can we win?
Yeah, of course. Both sides can win with just turning out their base. Yes, you can. Of course. What are you talking about? Of course.
If you can turn out enough people, you definitely
on both sides. Yeah.
Not enough people. You're hitting a limit on our turnout, right?
No, we didn't lose. We had like 10 million less voters, didn't we?
2016 and 2020 was huge.
Hold on, let me find
because of the mail-in ballot
fraud, the mail-in ballot hoax.
The turnout difference.
There's a lot of moderates
mail-in ballot
to the left.
You said
a lot of that. The reason we won in 2020, the reason we usually win is when moderates, when centrists, when those people break to the left. That's when we win.
No, I think we win when we turn out our base.
Wick, you just said
I agree. I actually agree with you on like
that. You agreed with Dev that you have to hit back, but then offer an off ramp. So you do agree that there should be tit for tat. You just think that after the tat, you offer an exit ramp.
Yeah, but the problem is right now we're at tit, and we're waiting for the tat.
I'm looking for
When
Wick
you
to
asked me
clarify
earlier
because
whether or not we should
Quibbles, I'm
unilaterally
asking
disarm,
Wick.
my answer is no.
Wick is the one. I understand where you are, Wick.
I think
seemingly
what we
contradicted himself,
disagree
or maybe I
on,
misunderstand.
what we disagree on is I
Sure.
say, yes, there should be consequences. You keep trying to frame my argument as I think we should just give up, do nothing, bend over to them. That's just not true. I just think that the what you are advocating for is simply going harder on them than they are on us. It's not tit for tat that you're advocating for, right?
Wait,
and
who
if
said
you
going
were
harder on them?
advocating
Wait. What's one thing that we've said going harder on them than they've gone on us? What's one example of that?
Josiah, pack the courts, and the filibuster. Those are two off the top of the dome.
They've already suspended the filibuster.
Josiah's on
They've
record
already
arguing for both
suspended the
these things.
filibuster, and they already denied. I don't even know. I'm not sure what's more.
The filibuster. We still have the filibuster. I'm talking about the legislative filibuster, not the filibuster for appointees.
No. Well, no.
Josiah wants to end the filibuster.
It's still a filibuster. He's talking about that there have been exceptions made and carve-outs made to the filibuster.
Sure, but
which
both
is what
sides
I've
have done it.
advocated for in the past as well. And yes, I've definitely argued for aggressive Supreme Court reform, including binding consequential
Packing
codes
the
of
court.
ethics, expanding the court if need
Yes, it's
be,
packing the courts,
term
yeah.
limits.
That's harder than what they're advocating for you.
So
you asked me the question. I'm answering the question. This is what you're advocating for. That's not tit for tat. That's let's go even harder than they are. And to frame it as tit for tat is just not.
I don't even know if I would agree that that's calling it going harder than they are, considering they literally denied a president his Supreme Court appointment. That's like an insane. Like, that's probably more egregious than adding a justice is denying somebody the right to have one.
And then broke their own rule. Like they did it. Like they did. They did the very
hold
thing
on.
that
I'm
Tom
so sorry.
Tillis-
Don't call it a rule. Call it a suggestion, because there are no rules with conservatives. Sorry, it's fucking. You know,
their own edict. They broke it twice in order to pack the court. They packed the court in 2017 and in 2020. So you cite Harry Reid a lot.
It's not the same thing as a packing of the court.
Okay, here. What's the more egregious? Wait. What's the more egregious? Wait. What's the more? Okay, wait. True. We're dishonest. We're lying. We're lying.
If we keep having people like you
You're right.
advocating for this.
You're right.
Oh my
Hold on.
God.
Wait. What's more packing? What's more packing? Would it be adding 5 Supreme Court justices, or would it be scheduling, doing Schedule F and firing every single disloyal bureaucrat who's not politically allegiant to Trump?
Oh, Schedule F is a nightmare. Absolutely.
Right? So hold on. If we're losing elections because some people in the past have talked about packing the court, which is something that every Democratic politician runs from so much. Wait. No. But Wick said it. Wick said it. How is it that Republicans can openly say Donald Trump literally tried to EO Schedule F already? Why can they do that openly and be celebrated for it?
They usually lose, but the reason they didn't this time is there's not just one factor, but one of those factors was
inflation and
no one that too, but no one trusted Kamala. No one trusted the DNC because they saw him force out Biden, right, against the primary voters' wishes, and the moderate voter stayed home. We have data on this, right? 6% of liberals stayed home. 27% of moderate voters stayed home, right? It wasn't liberals didn't turn out this election. It's moderates didn't turn out this election. And moderates who broke for Biden in 2020 because they saw Trump as an existential threat and Biden as a possible savior just decided this time, and we have to mind read the reason a little bit. But they just stayed home.
You said that I said something dishonest, and then earlier you said you don't give a
Packing
fuck
the court
what I think
framing
or
is
whatever.
dishonest.
So I'm curious. You seem very triggered. What is it that I'm saying that is pissing you off so much and is so dishonest?
The framing.
I have answered.
I'm sure you do.
That's cool. And if you change your name to fucking Wick, I'll care about what you say. I'm asking Wick directly.
Here's the problem I have with you, Josiah, and we've talked about this problem. I love you as a buddy, love you as a friend, but right. What you do is the same thing you always do. You frame it as Democrats do no wrong, Republicans are all evil and do everything wrong. And I think that framing isn't going to win us any elections.
Cool. So what's funny is that was just as dishonest as what you claimed that I said about you. You just want me to roll over.
You were just waiting to say that.
No,
line. That's really what
have I ever said that Democrats do no wrong and that Republicans are all evil?
Based on your rhetoric, that is a conclusion that a reasonable person
I could say the same thing to you about your tit for tat metaphor about how you actually
you'd be wrong and I'm right.
Democrats just want Democrats to roll over and just accept Republican tactics.
What if you had to honestly frame what Wick is trying to say, Josiah? How would you say it? Because what I've heard you say is something. It's not exactly that, right? But it's not too far off, which is like usually when there's a problem, it's the Republicans doing it. They're clearly worse. They're clear like every I don't. Is he that far off from what your actual position is?
Yes, because I'm not saying that Democrats are perfect. I'm saying that as a consistent political issue in modern American history, that I think Republicans violate more norms more frequently, more
no one's
egregiously than
disagreeing with
Democrats.
that. Wick agrees. I agree.
I understand. That's my position. That's why I think it's kind of absurd that Wick would say that I think Democrats are perfect and Republicans are evil. But what's interesting is Wick took outrage or took umbrage at this idea that I think that he just wants Democrats to roll over and accept Republican bad faith. So I'm asking for concrete, specific examples. He goes back to Harry Reid. He references Harry Reid a lot. What should Democrats have done when Mitch McConnell was blocking President Obama's nominees?
Get different nominees. No, that's unironically true.
No.
You know, hold on. What did Trump do? Hold on, stop. What did Trump do when it became clear that Gates wasn't going to get the nominee? He dropped them and appointed someone else.
What did he do in Gorsuch? What did he do in Gorsuch? Wasn't going to get any votes. When Gorsuch couldn't get the votes, McConnell killed the filibuster for fucking appointments.
You guys don't know what you're talking about.
What do you wait? What are you talking about? We don't know what we were talking about. Gates was a literal. How is this comparable at all? Gates didn't even have support for the Republicans. What are you talking about?
Correct.
Yes, and when he found out that he didn't have the support to get it through, he got someone who could be gotten through.
Are you implying that his current pick is better?
I'm implying that Harry Reid, right, or
I do think
Obama
his current pick is not a pedophile.
when Josiah asked me that question, should have picked people that he could have gotten through. Because he didn't block every appointment.
Respectfully, do you recognize that there is a substantive qualitative difference between Harry Reid trying to find nominees?
No, I'm gonna agree with you all the time. Yes, Republicans are worse.
I
Yes,
don't know.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the standard you're establishing doesn't work. I agree that Harry Reid should have found nominees that were accepted by his own party, which is what you're at, which is the Gates and Trump example. All Trump needed was a simple majority of Republican senators to back Gates. 3 or 4 reportedly were hesitant to do so, and that's why Gates ultimately dropped out. But you're actually setting a higher standard for Reid. You're not asking.
At this time, they had a higher standard because you can filibuster these things.
Majority.
Yes,
that's why he got rid of it. Oh my God, Josiah.
Wick, I need you to chill. Do you understand that there is a qualitative difference between asking, get your own party to support your nominees, and get the other party to support your nominees?
I'm gonna stop listening to people who are always wrong, and you were just wrong on this, and I've explained why. Because again, Harry Reid had a higher bar because of how the rules work there. That's why they changed the rules so they wouldn't have that higher bar, right? And so now we live in a world without that higher bar, and so Trump has to operate under different rules. You understand?
Which, to be clear, we all agree is a bad thing. We wish that hadn't happened.
I wish it
but
hadn't
it did.
happened.
Yeah.
Wasn't that during a period of time when like Democrats and Republicans were less extreme, and that the only reason that that McConnell was blocking stuff is because he wanted Obama to be a failed president, not because the nominees themselves are bad?
Yes.
He did explicitly say that, so yeah. He
Right.
explicitly said that his goal was to make
So it doesn't really matter if he would have gotten better nominees unless they were like pure Republicans. I think it wouldn't matter.
So how is that striking?
No one he could have gotten.
That's striking back. That's where again I'm confused. There seems to be an incongruence here. You say you agreed with Dev. There should be a tit for tat, but then after the tat,
yes, we shouldn't just lie down and take it. There are things that we can do. So,
what's
for example,
the tat for Harry Reid?
For Harry Reid, that specific situation, like I said, okay, when they do that, and after we get our nominees in place, then we play hardball with theirs. Yes, absolutely. But
the tat would be pick nominees
we point
that
out
McConnell would approve. And then when we're in the minority, when Harry Reid was in the minority...
You don't have to get McConnell to approve it. You just have to peel off a few.
Right.
Again, I'd have to look at the specifics and how much they were losing.
I'm sorry. When I say... Just chill. When I say McConnell, I mean the Republicans. Get enough Republicans to confirm Obama's appointees. And then when Harry Reid ends up in the minority due to the Republican president, what McConnell did to Obama.
Yeah.
No, I'm asking Wick. Does that's the tat?
Sure. That is one possible tat. There are other possible tats, right? You refuse to support legislation that they want to get through that you normally would. There are 1,000 things you could do.
Well, no. Here, if you want to be effective, if you want it to be effective, it has to be the same thing, right? So they took a Supreme Court justice from you. You got to take.
And now
one
we're
from
going to
them.
refuse to support legislation that we don't support.
And can anybody tell me if there's even a thing that Democrats can do that would even make the Republicans seek an off ramp, or that wouldn't just be seen as more provocation or weakness?
Yes, you can manage to force their hand by very publicly making a stint about corruption. They keep on talking. Their entire, like a huge part of their campaign this time around was about the corruption of the Democratic Party. So, okay, silver platter. Here's a bunch of anti-corruption legislation. Take it or leave it.
Dog, Republicans don't care about corruption. They don't care. Republicans don't give a fuck.
Steven, the Republicans in office don't. But yeah, I do think that upwards of 1.5% of the American people who didn't get vote for us this time do still care about not having corruption, actually.
You're talking about future elections. Do you know that the...
Correct! I'm talking about future elections, yes.
You know the Electoral College... You know the Electoral College is going to be shifted around, or won't need the blue wall states next time?
The Electoral College is going to give a couple more votes to Florida or whatever, and therefore what we just give up. And
remember when there was an issue that everybody, especially Republicans, cared so much about. Okay, so you're saying that the anti-insider trading, the anti-insider trading. Hold on, wait. The anti-insider trading. You're saying that because Republicans care so much about that issue, that's the thing you can bully them on, right?
I'm saying that we can go on. We can have every single member of our.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, I'm trying to meet you halfway. Okay, I'm trying to meet you halfway. Okay, yes, I'm trying to meet you halfway. Okay, so let's say that we conceive of an anti-fucking an anti. We'll assume it just applies to Congress, okay? Since cabinet members probably do. Sure. So if they made a bill in Congress, they could even get a fucking Republican to write the fucking bill, okay? That said, no more insider trading. This is a huge issue. We want to stop it, okay? And you think Democrats could push on that issue and that Republicans would go along with it?
No, I don't think they would necessarily go along with it, but I very much want to show publicly, explicitly, very publicly, and leading into the 26th election, that they're not going along with it.
Okay. Just feed them an optical loss, right?
Which is
gotcha.
Great.
Feed them an optical loss. I agree.
Yes, optical losses. You're saying optical loss as a dismissive bullshit.
I am.
But I don't know if you're aware of this. We're in the optics game.
So who in the class? Okay, so what's the trap that we just walked into? Anybody? This is the bipartisan border bill. And it was written by a Republican in the Senate who's literally another Trump dig sunk. He literally is. Okay, it was supported by Republicans years earlier, and it addressed an issue that every single person, especially Republicans in the country, cared about, and it was single-handedly murdered by Trump, and there were zero consequences for it. So why the fuck would an anti-corruption bill?
Hold on. The corruption bills that I'm describing are presumably the kinds of things that we could make them. We could design those to be such that literally 80% of the normal Americans just out there in the public would support. The bipartisan bill that you're describing was not supported in terms of the actual practice of it. Number one, it
literally was.
Number two, it was not. No, it was supported by members of the Senate and members of Congress. Yes, that's true. That's different than normal people. You can literally write these kinds of bills, and they are a single page long, and they can be read on Twitter by idiots on Twitter, right? And I want them to be that simple and that dumb, right? And all it says is XYZ, very simple things. And would you look at that? The Trumpy MAGA people are not going to get on board with it, or they will. And either one of those is a great option.
I had your faith. I wish I had your faith, but I remember during this last term.
What's the alternative to my faith?
I'm not saying
he's not going to give you an answer. There's no alternative Josiah's providing. All he's saying is we should go hard.
No, we've already given an alternative. So, for instance, term limits. Here's one. Right now. Wait. Here's one easy one right now. Right now. The three ethics things that Biden suggested, one of those was term limits, right? You either accept that or we do 5 more justices. Boom. Easy.
Wait, what?
Well, there were 3 suggestions that Biden made regarding to ethics and term limits for Supreme Court justices. That should have a bipartisan broad support. I haven't heard a real argument against it.
Put something forward that says,
and then wait, and if you don't support it,
term limits for the Supreme Court.
And that's your that's your position. And then to bridge it with our position, we say, okay, and if you don't do this, by the way, the Supreme Court just got 5 justices wider.
Okay, we don't have the ability. Even if you wanted to do that, we don't have the ability to do that. So I don't know why you're saying
when we do have the ability to do it. When we do have the ability,
have the ability, we should just do that.
Yeah. Boom.
We should not be trying to ramp down at all. We should be able to ramp up further in order to force their hand, in order to make it even worse and even more dire of a situation that we're currently at. But also, you definitely don't want there to be a civil war. And also, like, the Tim Pools of the world are fucking crazy to think that there might be a civil war in the future.
Wick, you're still very upset for some reason.
Yes.
What have I said? What have I said in the past 50 minutes to have triggered you so much?
Again, yes, I am mad because this was a winnable election, but we lost it in large part
because of Hunter Biden being pardoned in the future. Into the future.
Into the future. What do you mean?
No, he's memeing.
What do you mean? I'm not memeing. Excuse me. Hunter Biden was pardoned after the election.
Not memeing.
Hunter was pardoned after the election. So they went into the future to get upset about this, and that's why we lost the election. Okay, it's because of the future pardon of Hunter Biden. Okay,
the pardon shit. I have mixed feelings on that. I have no strong opinions either way. Right? Fair enough.
Steven, Wick isn't pissed at you. He's pissed at me. I'm looking for.
No, I'm mad at Destiny a little bit.
Yeah, he's mad at me too.
Okay.
Maybe I can get him mad at me before we're done. That'd be
I'm
great.
Gonna be mad. I'm mad at all of you. Okay.
What attitudes?
Chat, everything.
So what attitudes?
Again, the attitude of when we just have to stop being nice. We just have to keep going at them. We got to go hard. We got to pack the courts. We got to. Republicans have do all wrong. We do. Everything we do, we shouldn't talk about, right? Okay. One of the things that Clinton, let's go back all the way to Clinton. One of the biggest things he did that won him the election in '92 was he had what's called a sister soldier moment. Are you familiar with that?
I am.
Yes. The sister soldier moment for the chat is where he publicly, vociferously denounced people on his side, right? Sister Soldier was an artist at the time who made some really racist comments, okay? He called that shit out. And again, he did it in a left-leaning space. I think at some kind of Rainbow Coalition thing. I forget the details, right? But he went out and he looked at it and he looked at the left and he ran against the extremists on the left. He ran against the left. That worked for him. I think we are in a state politically now where that's what we need to do.
What would the sister soldier moment would be?
Just imagine this. Imagine this. Okay. I'm going to walk you through it.
I'm with you.
So Kamala Harris goes on Hassan's stream. Okay, goes on Hassan's stream. He would accept it. They would sit down. Okay, they have a talk. They start talking, and then she turns to him and says, "You're an anti-Semite. We want nothing to do with you. You were a disgrace to this party and people like you."
Holy fuck.
400 EVs easy. Okay, 400 EVs easy. You pick them out. They weren't voting for you anyway. It's an easy sacrifice. You pick someone out, and because a lot of people, all they wanted to hear, and they didn't feel they heard it. They wanted to hear that Kamala was willing to stand up against the extremists on her own side. That's what they wanted, and they didn't feel they got it.
Also, why is this Clinton sisterhood thing? Does this even fucking matter?
Sister Soldier. Yeah, it was credited at least in part, right? There were other factors, obviously. It's never one factor. This is
no, but not one factor. Right? There was wasn't there a big recession right before Clinton? And wasn't that when Perot won like fucking 20% of the vote?
Again, but it was still a factor. It's like you can always point to the bigger things. Like you can point to inflation.
No, it's not that I'm pointing towards the bigger things. I'm saying that like if I've got a patient in a room and I play a happy song and give them chemotherapy, I'm probably not going to use both of these in the same breath when describing why they recovered from their cancer. Okay, pretty sure Ross Perot was considered one of the largest spoiler candidates in all of U.S. history. Am I wrong on that?
That's fair.
Okay, yeah, he was a spoiler candidate, but again,
you got like 20%. Yeah.
I'm curious. Again, like speaking of legal options Democrats could pursue, right? Of the two things that you just listed, right? Packing the courts and term limits. One of those just requires congressional action. One of those requires a constitutional amendment. And so I'm wondering why we would try to sort of package these together, or even an ethics standard, right? An enforceable ethics standards, as far as I understand, could just be like, Congress is going to pass something that says, under these conditions, this is when we would impeach you. Like, that's something that, if you wanted it to be binding, it would have to be a constitutional amendment. But if you wanted to at least have the force of law, it would just require legislation. So I'm curious tactically about why we sometimes package these things that are like, to me, far-reaching, like constitutional amendment, with things that are like, well, this is something that, yeah, if you just had the political will and you have a majority in both houses and you're willing to get rid of the filibuster, you can do whatever you want.
Do you need an amendment to add more justices?
No, you just need legislation, right? So term limits would be an amendment, though, because federal justices are
Sheldon Whitehouse. When I interviewed him, he said that the workaround.
Oh, when I interviewed renowned congressional constitutional scholar Sheldon Whitehouse, excuse me,
excuse me, fucking professor with the 9 tweed jacket. Okay,
I'm sorry. When what did Professor
Whitehouse? What Whitehouse proposed was basically not removing justices after a certain term, but basically cycling them out and putting them basically on because Congress controls through federal statute jurisdiction of the Supreme Court, and so he would basically remove them from jurisdictions in terms of constitutional interpretation and put them on a separate version of the Supreme Court. They would not be able to hear these cases; they would be able to hear these cases instead. And then the ethics, the binding code of ethics, I don't think that would require a constitutional amendment either, because what they're proposing is that the judiciary would have its own enforcement mechanism. The Congress would simply say, you are required to have one. You are required to have a fact-finding mechanism. You would be required to have an inspector general. You would have to, this, and this. Now, I
love both of those. They just feel so opaque to me that I don't know that you can get traction.
Well, you would actually, they wrote it out. They wrote it out like this is in text. I'm just paraphrasing.
No, I know. In the same sense, though, with Quibble's thing, right, about the anti-corruption thing, I think the problem we're running into now, like the bipartisan border bill, is all you need is the Trumpy people to say, well, here's this part of the bill we don't like, and here's why it's bad, and no one will read the bill and they just agree, right? I don't care how much you simplify it. All you need optically is for Trump to say it was a bad bill. He just says over and over again, it was a bad bill, right?
Why don't you just bribe somebody to go tell them?
No, I'm saying make a bunch of bills. Put out a new bill every day between now and 2026. Every single day.
Are you aware? I can't tell if you're aware of this. I don't know if this is like an elaborate troll. You know, like Pelosi did this, right? That Pelosi's house passed more legislation than any house in the history of the entire United States. Like, I don't think the American people know about this or care about this.
I'm saying while we're in the minority, we should be going over and over and over. And every single day, there should be marching orders, and every single member of Congress should be like, okay, this is the bill that we're putting forward today. And it's a very simple, all it does is like this very simple thing that we can all get on board with.
Didn't we try to do like the Green New Deal and shit, and nobody cared or nobody...
The Green New Deal was not one very simple thing that everyone could get on board with at all. It was a very complicated and very controversial deal.
What is the simple thing that would be...
Agree with it or not, it is not...
What exactly is the simple thing that we're suggesting?
No trades, no for people.
Yeah, no trades. Should I just list them? I can list them.
And nobody in your family can trade either, or?
Yeah, let's ban on working for companies receiving public money for 10 years after leaving Congress. Let's ban on working for companies that have publicly endorsed you.
Jesus. Okay, hold on, wait. Those are so you're talking about wait. You're talking about huge changes right there. Those were huge changes.
Okay, but they'd be overwhelmingly supported by the American people, whether they be supported by Congress or not.
If they'd be overwhelmingly supported by the American people, why has nobody just suggested these yet? Why don't we have them?
Trump authorize 5 years for that?
Okay, so a lot of times
because this is important.
This is important. A lot of the times we don't get some of the legislation that polls popularly, right? But we don't seem to ever pass except for on like direct ballot initiatives, is because things get politicized. If there's a D next to it or an R next to it, it tends to become partisan. But these same issues often, when they're used as direct ballot initiatives, when there's not a D or an R next to the name, they pass fine.
Well, they're also procedural bodies.
So get rid of
for example,
all of
like the
Senate.
Senate,
a lot of
Senate majority leader, like the Senate majority leader, could just simply refuse to bring a particular bill to the floor, things like that. So listen, I'm not sure where the like.
Then start a protest outside of his office. What are we just like no longer capable of like doing anything in terms of like public rhetoric?
No,
clearly not. If our solution to the problems is we need to pass an anti-insider trading bill to fix the fact that we have a literal fucking insurrectionist as the president again. I mean, like
quibbles.
That's the solution. When I say individual things that we do for a week, that we focus on for a week, I'm not saying that we can't walk and chew gum at the same time. I'm not saying that we're like no longer focusing on anything else. I'm saying every week we can throw out, here's another one. ban on having Secret Service pay to lodge at the domicile of those that they're protecting, right? A very clearly, specifically against Trump kind of a situation as he's done that repeatedly, right? That is a very clear thing that the overwhelming majority of the American people, including MAGA voters, would probably be on board with.
Listen, I'm not going to pick a fight with you on this because I think that the only thing you can do in the minority is to virtue signal the way that you're talking about. That you have to try to make noise because that's the only thing right now Democrats will be able to do for the next 2 years. Wait a minute.
Not just noise. Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be condescending. That's me paraphrasing.
No. I didn't mean it as condescending.
Right, but I don't understand what
noise. Yeah.
I just don't understand what this means in terms of the ratchet down thing. That's what I thought the conversation was about.
I'm saying it's not just noise in as much as like when we put something forward about abortion or about healthcare that's obviously going to get thrown down, that is noise in as much as like that's something that no one in the general public expects our abortion bill or our healthcare bill to actually get forward. Whereas these kinds of things are designed explicitly such that they are things that are like clearly anti-corruption and are not progressive by any stretch of the imagination or conservative by any stretch of the imagination, that are just strictly anti-corruption. And that's the only purpose of the bill, to be anti-corruption. And so if the only goal is that, then putting it forward, even under a conservative agenda, is something that conceptually it's very difficult for Congress people to be able to push against, even if it has a D next to it, because you can look at the entire bill on Twitter and be like, "Hey, it's only a page. I read it."
Well, the only thing is that the minority party can't force votes on things. That's the only thing. That's why I say making noise. So if you're in the minority, it's the Senate majority leader in the Senate which dictates what bills. Like a senator can't just bring a bill to the floor. The majority leader has to be the one.
Yeah, I'm not saying we can get votes on it. I'm saying that what we can do, even if we don't get a vote on it, is we can manage to bring it forward. We can talk about it on the floor because we do have the ability to talk on the floor, right? We can demand that it be discussed.
That's why I said making noise. Listen, I know you're getting pushed back.
My point about the noise differential is like there's noise that's about things that everyone understands has nothing to do with the ability to pass legislation, and there's stuff like this which is by its nature different than something like immigration, where there is actual controversy, there's actual disagreement in terms of the rank and file of progressives and the rank and file of conservatives.
Yeah, I understand. You're talking about again a messaging blitz involving proposed legislation for relatively non-controversial things. That's probably the only thing that a minority party can do in this situation. I don't deny it. I didn't see the ratcheting down of like, the constant escalation.
What you're focusing on.
Yeah, I don't see the connection.
You're not focusing on it's not about focusing on things that have to do with, even if they're bipartisan, matters of infrastructure. It's specifically focusing in terms of the ratcheting down effect on stuff that is anti-corruption and that will disproportionately likely affect Republicans, which is why they might vote against it, because Republicans happen to be at this particular moment in American history significantly more corrupt on average.
I'll just say this because it's like, okay, certainly at the top. I gotta sleep. I'm an old man.
I think the others are streaming, right?
Yeah,
so
I know that's fine. I just want to say this before I go. Is what I'm saying, right? I want to give like a kind of a closing spiel, right? Is like I want to win. I don't want to lose. I think the path to victory. We can look at it and we can look at how Obama won, how Clinton won, right? How Biden won in his first term. We could use lessons from like what worked before, and we can at least apply it a little to what we do in the future. And I would like to live in a world where Republicans don't have power at all, right? I want to be in a world where Democrats control the House, Democrats control the Senate, Democrats control the presidency. That would be a great world. I think that my way gets us there closer, and I think that Desai's way. That's harder to do, but fair enough. I'll say this: I love you guys, and we will fight about this again. I got some shows coming up on Thursday. Well, tomorrow I'm just going to do call-ins because I'm tired. But Thursday, I'm going to be having a show on the deportation plan by Trump. And that should be a fun show. And whether that is good or not, yeah, I'll see you guys later.
Listen, I hope for your call-in show and you're in a better fucking mood, man. You just moved.
I think I'm in a bad mood.
God damn,
look,
this is why Wick doesn't stream late.
I have made so much money tonight. So first of all, thank you to Biden.
I come in and I say hi, and Wick's like, you fucking hyper partisan piece of shit, motherfucker. You just want to. So when you say hi to people, you're only saying hi to the fucking Democrats. You're saying die to the Republicans.
Messiah wants to escalate to a nuclear war. Okay,
we're like, God damn, Wick, catching strays, pent up rage towards. I'm sure
you love the abuse. Okay, and anyway. But yeah, it's so thank you to Hunter, thank you to Biden for pardoning Hunter. Like, I don't know if it was good for our country, but it was great for my wallet. Thank you again.
Your wallet is nearly as girthy as.
I'll see you guys later.
No, don't make that joke.
Don't make the joke. Okay, I'll see you guys later. Okay, because it's like
it's 2 o'clock in the morning, but not 1 o'clock.
Destiny, thanks for putting up with me for this, but this was fun. Okay,
always so much fun.
Professor Bunn, you're the principled conservative here to the extent that such a thing is possible.
Yeah, as much as I can be.
So you and I go round and round on this all the time. You're excited that Destiny's reading the Federalist Papers.
Wait, this guy's a conservative? Why would you ruin him for me? Oh my God, why would you say that? I had such a positive opinion of him.
I'm an anti-MAGA conservative.
Stephen, listen,
we exist. There are dozens of us. Dozens.
I say this unironically. You're going to love this guy. You're going to disagree with him very strongly about certain things, and he's worried. He's worried that I'm corrupting you. But I am curious. What ratcheting down do you propose?
Oh, geez, that's it. Well, I don't know because I agree with you that, like, of course, like on the blue slip thing, for example, like the Republicans are not going to do it. The incentives are all wrong for them to, they've gotten the win, and why would they, hand it back and give the Democrats a power that they don't need to when they're in the majority? Like so I don't know, and that frustrates me. This is a longer conversation. I think I disagree with some of the framing I hear you guys using in terms of tit for tat or like knives and gunfights, where I do think that there is value both optically and practically to sometimes being willing to throw up your hands and take a loss in the short term for long-term gain. And so I do think there is something principled and both principled and useful sometimes about being willing to say, yeah, I'm going to let them do a bad thing, and I'm not going to do the bad thing back. I want you all to see how bad the thing is, and then I'm going to win off of that.
For just a second, though, I'm sorry. Focus in on that because I don't see any evidence of that, at least in the current modern political zeitgeist.
It's a hard sell for sure. I'm not saying this is
not even that it's a hard sell. I'm just curious, like, where has this ever worked? Like recently in the past like 20 or 30 years? Because I think a really good example that my very close and personal friend Brian Tyler Cohen, I think you might maybe chat with him once or twice, Josiah, but my very close and personal friend says this a lot. That I was trying to fuck with Josiah so much. I just forgot what I was going to say. Never mind.
No,
wait, I remember. Sorry. We've where is our trust right now in the Department of Justice? Now that Garland has foregone so much in relation to Trump, like, where are all of these Republicans? Like, imagine, like, here's what I would believe you. Now I'm being very hyperbolic now, but like, imagine Kash Patel, okay? Imagine Gates, okay? These people are nominated, and Republicans are like, well, hold on. We really did think that Garland was going to be super fast, was going to be really extrajudicious in his prosecution of Trump. But like, he took his time and, some cases got kicked down the road in Florida. Is it really as corrupt and fucked as we thought it was? I don't know. Where is the evidence for any of these things alleviating any of the concerns of the other side ever? I'm sorry, in the past like 25 years. Go ahead.
It doesn't exist. And so this is why it's a hard sell, I think, in the sense that I want better Republicans. I want you all to have a better opposition party. These are people largely that I can't support. So I was telling a friend earlier, like my principles led me to the point where I said this year I can't vote for anyone who's an election denier, which meant in Tennessee where I live, I couldn't vote for any Republican on the ballot. So I don't. It's a hard sell in that sense. I look to grander historical examples, right? I think like direct action in the civil rights era is an example of sort of what I'm talking about. Taking a temporary loss for the sake of long-term gain, where you have like, a willingness to say, yeah, this is a bad thing, and I'm going to subject myself to the bad thing so people can see how bad the thing is, right? That's what
Wait, for what? What are you referring to here?
Well, like MLK, being willing to submit, say, I'm going to break an unjust law, and I'm going to sit in jail, and I'm going to write letters from jail.
What was the name of the bridge? Was it the Pettus Bridge, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, or?
Yeah. So direct action as a concept in terms of protesting unjust law, I view as a form of this, which
and
is
that
saying,
might be true on like a citizen level. And you're the he calls you a history professor. You know way more about this than me.
Political science, yeah.
Political science. Okay, but like there are things that I think were done to make civil rights work that I think modern day Republicans would heavily rebuke. Like my understanding is, as a very poor understanding of this areas of history, my understanding is after 64, the biggest way that we really kind of got civil rights going was heavy federal government intervention.
Right. Yes. Well, actually, it's interesting. Josiah says I'm sort of, or Wick will call me like an old school conservative or whatever. There's an interesting ideological trend you can track with certain major conservative figures. William F. Buckley is one of these, where he starts out being fairly, he's pro-segregationist in the sense that he supports states' rights, and he thinks in the long run, like this will shake itself out, market forces, blah, blah, blah. Through the 60s, he sees basically the resistance to Brown v. Board in the South and says, oh, actually, we do need federal enforcement of this. Like oh crap. Like this is not working the way I thought it would. And so you see, especially late in his life, but especially 60s, 70s, and 80s, William F. Buckley, very prominent conservative, comes to believe actually that federal enforcement of these things is warranted and is in line with his principles. He has a kind of change of heart on this. So yeah, I think you're right though, that current Republicans would probably go in and be like, yeah, no, like businesses should be free to discriminate and et cetera, et cetera. I think you're right. So yeah, I'm not. I'm mostly a political theorist, so my head is in the clouds most of the time. I'm not a terribly practical person, so I'm not suggesting that I have like the silver bullet here that's going to fix all the problems. Oh, here's the end of the cycle of escalation. Like here's how you fix it. No, it's a pretty sucky situation all around. Yeah.
One of the big things that are floating in my head as of the past year is that we have like our brain, okay, that puts together the world around us, but the brain doesn't really know what's happening, right? So we have to use our eyes, our ears, our mouths, our hands, or whatever, to collect information about the world around us, to give our brain something to put together. And I feel like right now the sense gathering organs are the media, and that as long as these media are corrupted, it doesn't matter what you do, because when you say, like, even baked into the language you're using, you're saying things like, well, let's follow this norm, let's let them do this, and then let the American public see how it turns out. The American public can't see because Fox News won't tell them, right? Like, how is it that, and even my own audience will hate me for this, but like, how is it that life was so hard, inflation has fucked us so much, like everybody's living paycheck was so fucked in so many ways, it's impossible. Trump is elected, the outlook on the economy changes, and this is one of the largest, I think, if not the largest, or on track to be the largest, like Black Friday sales in all of U.S. history. So
yeah, I've been joking with friends recently about how, like, right now, if you took a random sample poll, the number of people who believe that Trump is currently the sitting president would be higher than you expect, right? Like, so it's like the level of political ignorance maps onto what you're describing, but not just political ignorance.
How we experience the world.
Yes, yeah, it's all filtered through sort of elite cues, and the elite cues on one side are, I agree with you, like very skewed and horrible.
Let's use a
don't know how to fix that
example. Let's use a specific example outside of the economy. So an easy example of how media has changed things. Consider President Nixon. So President Nixon, after Watergate, the reason that he resigned was because Republicans privately pressured him, saying, if you don't resign, not only will you be impeached, but there will be bipartisan support sufficient that the Senate will convict you. And in the aftermath of that, Rupert Murdoch famously said, that's the whole point of the Fox News enterprise, is that he wanted to prevent what happened to Nixon from ever happening to a Republican again. So to Stephen's point, we can use this as kind of like a compare and contrast. Back then, not to, obviously the American electorate had its issues, as they always do in every iteration, but you could probably make the argument that the media system and the media was such that acts of corruption would be reported as such, and there wouldn't be like this robust propaganda effort to counter message or to sanitize or launder what President Nixon did. We don't have that situation in 2024. Stephen gave the example of the economy. And by the way, there's a partisan dip on both sides, but it's 2.5 times greater for the Republicans, depending on who is in power. And so much of this, I think, is a direct consequence of the media ecosystem. So to your getting back to it, I just don't see this changing under the current climate, because this idea of, taking a short-term loss in order to appeal to the empathy and the frustrations of the American people, the media landscape is such that I don't think that's really a viable option.
So do you see kind of my, I guess, like frustration here? Like when I listen to you and Stephen talk, it feels very doomer, right? There's this, well, we've sort of already lost the courts, we've lost Trump v. U.S., and so the executive can kind of do whatever he wants, and there's very little we can do to stop that. And also the media ecosystem is completely gone, and so there's no way that we could possibly convince these people that they're believing a lie, etc. And so anything bad that happens will get filtered through that and passed down. And so in my mind, I say, okay, so you all say, well, here's the legal things I think the Democrats should do. All of those options, in my mind, are going to immediately be spun, immediately turned back around as a bad thing, and immediately sort of entrench the problems you're fighting against. And so I don't want to be a complete pessimist, but I'm not seeing an off-ramp from the proposal that you all are giving me either.
Because I think right now here, the issue is that people keep saying, like, do we have to fight? Is it civil war? Right? Civil war is not the worst outcome, right? Like, and it's crazy to me that Americans, a country where baked into our ethos, okay, is the give me liberty or give me death, right? It's not give me like some amount of like comfort and safety or else, or maybe give me liberty, or like the idea that we would like be satisfied with some kind of authoritarian dictator. The idea that we would be okay with like, well, fuck it, we can't civil war. Like, that's not even the worst outcome. The worst outcome is what did the guy say? Chains and slavery, as opposed to being able to fight for freedom.
Okay,
I have a question.
If you believe that we're on that track towards this sort of dictatorship kind of situation, then it is a matter of figuring out a way to make sure that doesn't happen. That does mean either the civil war, as you're describing, and I agree it's not the worst case scenario, certainly, that is a better option, or it's a matter of the ratcheting down that I'm kind of describing and that Wick was trying to describe and that a bunch of other people have been describing as well. Right?
So I would rather be on a path to civil war than on a path towards a totalitarian dictator. And you're putting us on the path to because you're putting us on the path to make them make that decision. If it's civil war, then fuck it, the civil war. But don't bend over and be like, okay, fuck it. You want to have the whole DOJ? You want to be able to do this? You want to be able to ignore it? Congress? You want to fuck it?
It's not a matter of fuck it. Like, I'm saying that we should tit for tat, but we shouldn't expand. We shouldn't, like, Wick was the one who was saying that we shouldn't manage to even do proportional actions. I'm saying be proportional, and I'm saying as a separate thing to being proportional, we should also ensure that we're being very vocal and loud about our anti-corruption campaign during this off cycle, during this time that we don't have power. And then once we actually do gain power again, we should actually manage to get through a bunch of that anti-corruption stuff.
Yeah, I guess I'm not as pessimistic in the sense that I see, like, for example, the pushback in the Senate. I don't like Trump v. U.S., but I think it remains to be seen how that will actually play out in the courts, what are official actions, how presumptive immunity gets applied, etc. I think, I'm not as pessimistic as you all. I am scared, I guess I would say. Like, I don't like the way that things are trending, but I also am not convinced. Like, there's something I want to run by Pisco about an avenue I think the court could take in line with what they said in Trump v. U.S. that I think would be limiting on the executive, but I don't know if it's true or not because I'm not a lawyer. I just sort of dabble in constitutional law, but like I'm not as pessimistic as you guys. I think there's room within the system and structures that we have, even within the Republican Party, for some resistance to Trump. But yeah, I mean, it's bad. It's real bad, and I don't think Steve.
Listen, I mean, I'm definitely
just real quick. Let me just jump in. I fell asleep, so I'm going to bed. Good night.
Later.
It's nice talking and meeting all you guys. Bye.
See you, buddy. Listen, again, I'd be surprised if Steven said this, but I know, I'm more of a cynic, but I'm not saying that the situation's totally hopeless. I just think the hope is consistently shrinking. And, I know Pisco's not here, but I've read the opinion. Steven's read the opinion probably more than even Pisco, even though he's not a lawyer. What's the mitigating paradigm you think could be applied to Trump v. U.S.?
So, well, I just sent Pisco a message about this because this might be fleeting, this might be wrong in terms of legal theory, but something that
before you say what you're going to say, there is mitigation, and it's wrong and impossible already. But go, say your thing.
That's probably true. But so a doctrine the court has neglected to pull out of its hat for a long time is the non-delegation doctrine that suggests that there's both in theoretically and practically there are limits on the amount of power that Congress can give to the federal bureaucracy. It comes up in Youngstown Sheet and Steel and the other case that I'm forgetting. But it effectively says that the court has a path to say, okay, the law that Congress passed that authorized this executive agency or this executive action goes beyond, just allowing you to execute the law faithfully as the Constitution requires. It's actually giving legislative power to the executive branch, which is out of bounds. That's something that they've neglected to pick up for at least 70 years. I think it still exists, and there's a Venn diagram overlap of the people on the court who opposed the Chevron doctrine and led to its overturning recently, and those who embrace non-delegation doctrine as something that should be sort of resuscitated. And so I could see a possible future. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if there's hope. I don't know if this is real, but I could see a possible future where a RFK-led HHS does something that is just so ridiculous that's challenged in court that these conservative justices, same ones who said the Chevron doctrine is giving too much deference to the executive branch, come back and say, yeah, actually, the statute that RFK is leaning on to get this executive power under HHS and its subsidiary departments is out of bounds, falls afoul of the non-delegation doctrine.
But what's
I
that to
hope
do with
that
Trump?
exists.
What's that have to do with Trump v. U.S.? Because Trump v. U.S. wasn't. It was.
It doesn't directly.
Okay.
I want to wait and see how it plays out in the lower courts in terms of what's an official action and what's not. How you overcome the presumption of immunity versus not. Like I don't know that it will be.
The issue you're running into is these things wouldn't be crimes. You're running into actually a stronger constitutional crisis, which is really scary because Trump probably doesn't even know the three branches of government. Is technically what you're saying, and Republicans who are also all absolutely fucking retarded, and so they can't make any arguments. If a Republican were smart, okay, then what you just said actually implicates what the response should be. Anytime a Democrat is like, oh no, like RFK Jr. and all these people are going to destroy the government. These guys are going to destroy the
vaccines.
Right? Yeah, but what you should say is, well, hold on, excuse me. Executive agencies, departments, offices, the executive can only do what Congress has allowed it to do. So they can't just start rolling all these things back if Congress has tasked them with the job of doing these things. They just can't do that, especially now that Chevron has been overturned. The executive has even less wiggle room for interpretation. But the scary thing is that, right, if you have an executive branch led by somebody who doesn't know the branches of government, what if the executive finally starts testing those boundaries of, we're going to do it anyway. And then the Supreme Court says no, and they're like, okay, who cares?
Yeah, well, okay, that is a fear that I have, which I think is sort of the necessary outcome of, I think, the world that Josiah prefers. I don't want to get too down in the weeds of constitutional interpretation, but I was just teaching this today. I was teaching a section on Congress and the courts, and we were talking about the view that is sometimes called departmentalism.
Josiah, yeah. He's got a crazy view on this. Not good.
Well, and so I think Josiah is right to lean on the people that he does to say, look, there isn't a consensus view at the ratification of the Constitution over what judicial review is going to look like. The Madisons and the Jeffersons of the world do not like the idea of judicial review as we have it now. Hamilton does. But the Jeffersonian and Madisonian view is departmentalist, that says each of the branches is engaging in its own construction of the Constitution when it operates within its sphere of power.
Right. And they have coordinate constitutional interpretation.
Correct. Yeah. And so I think that's fair, and I think that's fine. I think any view that you take of judicial review, Josiah's or mine, runs into this problem, which is, well, what if the executive just says, screw it, I'm going to do what I want anyways? That at that point, you were kind of dismissive earlier, Stephen, where somebody was saying, well, the check is at the ballot box. I think that is, you're reading the Federalist Papers. That in their mind is the primary check, right? When something's going wrong with government, the number one, first and foremost check that exists is just you get to vote, and that's cool.
It's not when something's going wrong with government. It's when people perceive that something is going wrong with government. That's the important part.
Yes.
I have a question for you. You're a political science or whatever. Do you have any opinion on the Roberts article about the legislative branch writing out the ability for the Supreme Court to actually review a legislation?
I don't know what article you're referring to. If you can put it in general.
I think Destiny reviewed it a while back.
I don't know if I've read it, but are you talking about sometimes Congress can, I think, expressly put in a piece of legislation the executive branch has broad determination on this particular thing?
Correct. So my question around that is why, because I feel like the Democrats are going to get back in power and have three branches of government. If the tariff thing is as bad as everybody makes it out to be, that's probably what's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Why don't they just write the laws and bind the Supreme Court to those ethics things through that law by utilizing that mechanism?
Oh, in terms of like taking away the power of the executive to
the judiciary to review whether or not that's constitutional or not.
It falls under what Ugars was saying earlier, that you can't really right away, you can't really take or give powers from other branches from another branch. I think that's
Congress can control the scope of
the jurisdiction
of the court, but there are certain things that are with. Sorry, go ahead, Jesse.
Article 3 does permit Congress, with certain key exceptions, to place jurisdiction under the Supreme Court or remove jurisdictions or provide regulations. I just don't know the mechanism for doing that.
For core constitutional
legislation. No. Well, so there's certain things that are listed. That's like so disputes between the states, maritime law, admiral law. There's certain things that it says like the courts have jurisdiction over this, and then also jurisdiction over whatever laws that Congress passes that give them jurisdiction. And so this is, I mean, there's an early, I'm forgetting the case. Maybe Pisco would know, but there's an early case where there's some sort of dispute about an appeal that comes before the court, and between the time the appeal is filed and the time the court hears it, Congress has passed a law restricting the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court says, yeah, Congress passed that law. We don't have jurisdiction over this case anymore.
Yeah, so just real quick, Article 3, Section 2. In all cases affecting ambassadors and other public ministers and consuls, and those in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. In all other cases before mentioned, the Supreme Court shall have appellate jurisdiction, both as to law and fact, with such exceptions and under such regulations as the Congress shall make. So basically it's saying, with the exception of ambassadors and dealing with ministers and consuls and disputes between the states, Congress can say this particular thing is non-justiciable by the Supreme Court.
So they can bind the ability for the SCOTUS to actually review a ethics law.
Yeah, I just don't know how that's done. Are you saying, Professor, that
that's the bomb that everybody was talking about? So
it's by law. Like Congress passes a law that says the Supreme Court shall not have jurisdiction over XYZ cases.
Okay.
As far as I understand, that is the case with the case I'm thinking of. Again, I can't remember the name of it. My textbook's on campus. But that, like, between the time this guy filed his appeal and it coming before the court, Congress passes a law that says in these particular kinds of cases, Supreme Court doesn't have jurisdiction, and the court looks at the case and looks at the law and says, hey, Congress can do that. That's what the Constitution says. We can't hear this case.
So for all the doomerang is what I'm going to point out is that if the Democrats just set up a bunch of stuff ready to go for when they do get power, they can just put in these things, remove the filibuster temporarily, and get the changes they want. And then the Supreme Court wouldn't have the ability to review them.
Well, the ironic part is wouldn't this have to survive judicial review?
Well, that's the issue. Is that it does do if you write out the ability for judicial review to happen with this Roberts thing.
Right. No. I mean, Stephen's technically right in the sense that yes, a plain reading, yes,
the court would have to hear it.
On theory, a plain reading, the court would be obligated to say, fuck no, we can't touch this. But to Stephen's point is, it could be appealed, and then the court would have to say, fuck no, we can't review this. But that depends on the interpretation of the court. And I think Trump v. United States is a masterful demonstration of how willfully obtuse the conservative majority would be.
The response to that would be, you now have the legitimacy to pack that court to derive and force them to become ethical. It is win.
The problem with anything about justiciability is that I just mumbled that, but is that the court invokes it when they want, when it's a thorny thing they don't want to deal with. So like you can invoke the political question doctrine and on all sorts of things, right? And so they wield it haphazardly and non-systematically, and like they could have refused to hear Trump v. U.S. and said this is a political question. Like that would have been just as.
And then when they did hear it, they took their time and ruling on it and providing their opinion. That's my issue with the Supreme Court, is that under the current paradigm, the lack of checks against it, the lack of meaningful checks against it, is a huge problem for me, and it goes back to the concerns that the founders had about a rogue Supreme Court and why they intended it for it to be the weakest of the three branches. So listen. You made a shot at it earlier. I totally take your point. I said this when we discussed it. There are serious issues with the Michael Stokes-Paulson interpretation of coordinate constitutional interpretation, because it gives a lot of power and a lot of leverage to the President of the United States. But I take issue with an unaccountable court. At the very least, I can say the president is term limited and that the president is subject for election, every 4 years. I would be much more comfortable with a Supreme Court that truly has the final interpretation on the Constitution if there were other checks against it, a binding ethics code, that if they look at a porno magazine, they get the death penalty. You know, like the strictest definition, the strictest standards.
You're speaking my language now. You're talking about banning porn for that's fine.
Put it that way. Yeah. If they stop looking at porn.
I have concerns about some of the things I've heard you and others propose in terms of like what these things would do to what I consider the essential independence of the court.
True.
But I think where I'm sympathetic to you guys is that I think you're right that some major change is going to have to happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years, or the court is going to lose all legitimacy. It's been in a crisis of legitimacy at least since Bush v. Gore. Yeah, so something has to change.
Let's ask Stephen. Let's ask Stephen because he's on this journey. He's not as extreme on this as I am, and I'm still on this journey too. But I'm curious, Stephen. Where are you with Supreme Court reform at this point?
I think I've already given my position. It hasn't changed. It's been pretty stable for the past 1.5 months. I think that term limits are a no-brainer. I think that it is one of the most unbelievable, unfathomable things that we play the lottery every time there's a new president. Like we're now in a world where Donald Trump could have 5 or maybe 6 appointments to the Supreme Court. That you want to talk about legitimacy of the Supreme Court? How? That's just absurd. It's absurd and it's insane.
Yeah, I
one appointment per president. It also fixes a lot of the issues relating to ethics or anything else, because at the very least we can say that the Supreme Court is a little bit more reflective of the aggregate will of the American people, rather than very heavily leaning onto one side.
That's sort of not.
Yeah, but they're not
the point is not to be reflective of what we think.
It's not a democratic institution.
They're not supposed to be Congress or even the Senate. Right?
Well, I mean, they're not supposed to be democratically elected per se, sure. But when the American people vote, they vote for a president that they hope nominates a judge that somewhat politically aligns with them.
Yeah.
And when the Senate,
the idea is that they're independent and loyal first to the will of the people that is above the will of any particular people at any given time, right? The will of the people that exist right now is expressed in elections. The will of the capital P people is expressed in the Constitution. So this is the Federalist 78 argument that Josiah has become increasingly uncomfortable with, is that in this struggle between the will of the people now as represented in the ballot box and the will of the people then in the Constitution and the guardrails and the rules that we have governing the system, one of those is supreme, and it's the Constitution. And so you want justices who are loyal to the Constitution, not to the voters, not to the electorate, not to whatever I
understand that, but unfortunately with the way the Supreme Court picks work now, right, you vote for a president, oftentimes for instance, going by your theory, nobody and I'm not saying your theory dismissively. I truly do agree, okay? Because Josiah is, okay, a little bit of
insane. He's insane.
He hates the courts. He does. And I understand why he hates the courts. I don't hate the courts so much as Josiah. But I do think that our courts are highly politicized in an insane degree. There are people who are voting, going by what you just said, it should be an error in democracy in the United States that people are voting for or against abortion by way of voting for the president, right? Yeah. Which is a huge thing.
Would the courts be more or less politicized if we took the most, even just as arguing for this, but the most radical extreme version of making them elected as frequently as Congress? Would that make them more or less?
That would be horrible. Political? It would be game over for the courts.
I agree. So I guess the question is
okay, Josiah's hold on, guys. Hold on. I'm going to advocate.
So many state Supreme Courts, most states.
But we're not talking about state Supreme Courts. We're talking about the Supreme Court. We can get back.
Screw your state, Josiah. Come on.
But the idea is if we're trying to have one part of our government is supposed to be the most democratic facet of it, which is to say Congress, which is to say that's the thing where you're supposed to have the crazies explicitly, right? You're supposed to have Senate, which is supposed to be a little less crazy, a little bit more long-term thinking. And you're supposed to have the purpose of the court is to be the most long-term thinking, and therefore they're the ones who stay on for the longest period of time possible, which is to say their entire lives. Right. As a general principle, setting aside what's currently going on with the court, is that a good, reasonable basis to think about this or not?
Well, no,
if you ignore all human behavior,
it's not all human behavior. It's the incentives do change materially if you introduce term limits, and I think that's something you have to grapple with.
Wait,
if you're
why?
thinking about if you're thinking about a life after the courts, I think that does affect your decision making. If you're thinking about like the idea to Federalist 78, the idea of a lifetime appointment is to reduce the dependence that the justice feels on the president that elected them. They know, they're certainly not sitting for re-election, and they're not just there for a period of time as a symbol of that president. They are far going to outlive that administration. They're going to serve for I think it's an average of 16 to 20 years. It might be 16 for Supreme Court justices. So they're serving for at least 4, maybe 5 administrations, depending on re-elections or whatever. So the idea is that they will far outlive them. I think that changes in a way. So think of the incentive change, right? If you're you've got what's the term limit you guys propose? What's the most common one? Like 8 or 12 years, or what's the?
Jesus, I just want it so that like every president gets to nominate one pick.
So whatever cycle you guys have, right? Imagine I'm making a decision
like that.
Today, knowing that I'm going to be off the court in a year. There are cases before me. So Supreme Court justices don't get paid that much, by the way, compared to what they could earn in private practice.
And so
there's something before the court.
Unless you're a bunch of some billionaires, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, they could be high-powered attorneys at corporate law and make way more. Hey, there's a case before me that implicates corporate law, and this is a place I could work for after. It changes the decision-making. I think it does. It has to. Now, that it might be a worthy trade-off, right, to make them more accountable, to solve the problem of, 5 Trump picks. Like, maybe it's worth it, but we just have to, I think, appreciate that there are some trade-offs.
I mean, I think that right now the issue with the politicization of everything, I think that there are trade-offs that I would easily remedy to make that happen. So if somebody's like, okay, well, listen, everything that Eucharist just brought up is 100% true. So if you really want to make it so that we have 1 pick per term for president, then you're going to have to make it so we ban them from holding any other legal or judicial office afterwards, and that we give them like a full pension and retirement. I'd be like, okay, sure, that's easy. That's like an easy, yeah, sure. Also, maybe. Okay, and then also, okay, I'm gonna counter you with a judicial. Yeah, okay. What if right now in your current system, okay, what if you're a president and you're looking at 2 judges and Madison and Adams have come down to touch your shoulders to guide you in your presidential executive wisdom and the guidance of having good courts. And there's a guy, okay, and he's 66 years old. And this guy, God, he lives and breathes the Constitution, okay? He was training in a forest growing up. He can recite every single word. He knows all the Federalist, Anti-Federalist papers, every Supreme Court case. He's got it all, okay? And you got another guy who's like decently qualified, but, not as much. He was the guy roiding in Rocky IV, not like Rocky who was like doing the mountain stuff, okay? But this guy's like 46, right? Under the current iteration, aren't you kind of penalized for choosing older justices? Because this guy's not even going to be in court as long, and this other guy might be there for fucking 40 years, right? So in a way, couldn't you also argue that term limits kind of could guide us towards better picks that maybe are a little bit older and wiser, but might age out sooner?
I think that's possible. And I think you're right that we are in an era of the court where everything feels wildly consequential, where I think this is why Sotomayor doesn't want to retire and give Biden another pick, is because she envisions a world where she can make real substantive legal change in the future, even with the court stacked the way it is.
For political reasons. I mean, selective and strategic retirements, 100%.
No.
The other thing is, the other thing is, you talked about incentive structure. So imagine in the current political climate, you have lifetime appointments, no ethics code, no mandatory.
Hey, they have an ethics code. It's
just not. It's useless.
Yeah.
There's no enforcement mechanism. There's no fact-finding mechanism.
It's shame. Shame is the enforcement mechanism.
Right. And
remember when there was a huge investigation after was it Dobbs that leaked or whatever?
Right.
We have no idea. There's like 18 people in this building. How the fuck do we not know?
Definitely Sotomayor's clerks.
What the fuck?
Definitely Sotomayor's clerks.
Alito. But the incentive structure there is, if there is no penalty for you to, basically adjudicate however you feel, because the great thing about being the court of last resort is the law is what you make it. There's there's that quote that Michael Stokes Paulson frequently cites of a 17th century clergyman, that he who is he is the interpreter of law, he who is judge, is more the creator of laws than the lawgiver, because they're the final interpretation. So what's the check against a lifetime appointee? There's none.
The idea is,
impeachment.
You have impeachment. You do have impeachment. That's an option. But the idea is you don't want normal democratic accountability mechanisms on these effectively aristocrats of legal judgment. And I don't know, you can argue that that's a bad idea. I actually think, speaking of the guy who's been training in the forest studying all the papers, you guys should both spend some real time reading anti-federalist papers, because I was as I was teaching this courts in the Congress class today, I marked a section in my textbook that I was like, Josiah is an anti-federalist. Like they were quoting thoroughly from Brutus and his argument against the independent Supreme Court that makes exactly the arguments that you guys are, that these are effectively going to be entrenched aristocrats with no accountability mechanism, that are just like all of the arguments you all make.
You just defeat your own argument by saying that in theory the founders did create one in the form of impeachment. So clearly there was they were not supposed to be these totally unaccountable people.
Right. Well, totally unaccountable. No one's totally unaccountable. The threshold for accountability is different from someone who represents me directly and gets recalled or gets reelected every 2 years versus someone who is supposed to be this independent sort of on high arbiter of what the supreme law of the land actually means and says.
Right. The standard that the founders had, again, I take your point. So impeachment was the only real viable mechanism to remove a justice. It was there, the supermajority requirement in the Senate. Obviously, it's a high threshold. But they also expected the judges to be fastidiously apolitical.
Yes.
Fastidiously apolitical. The height of ethical behavior, far more so than a president, a senator, a congressperson.
And that turned around really fast. In the first Supreme Court, you had one of my favorite founding fathers, James Wilson, one of only a dozen or so people who signed both the Declaration and the Constitution, who died after a stint in debtor's prison. So we had a sitting Supreme Court justice who was in debtor's prison. He was basically the founding era equivalent of a crypto bro. He was speculating on land in the Northwest Territories all the time. So can you imagine, right? Like Thomas, all the stuff about his billionaire friends. That just throw him in debtor's prison for a little bit, right? What will that be in the Supreme Court, right? So the threshold for impeachment was very, very high, right? You had people doing stuff like Wilson, who were just like profligates who were not people of upstanding character. Washington passes him over him for Chief Justice after Jay retires because of this, but he's not impeached, right? So it is a rare occurrence, and I think that's by design. And whether or not that design is good, we'll still fight about it in the future, I'm sure.
I think also.
But read the Anti-Federalist papers.
Fuck the Anti-Federalists. They lost for good reason. I'm just kidding.
You guys are echoing their arguments so much. It's great.
No, don't confuse me with Josiah. I like the courts and I like the institution of the Supreme Court. Okay.
Don't let him distance himself, Stephen. We're holding hands on this.
You guys are. Pisco's backstage. Where's Wick? Can somebody drag Pisco?
He went to bed.
Yeah, Wick is gone, bro.
What are your permissions?
Oh, there's Pisco. Hey, he can correct everything I've said wrong legally.
Wait, no, I haven't heard anything you've said.
Wait, wait.
Okay.
Yeah, wait. Quick thing for Eucharist. One of the issues that I feel that has led to so much stuff with the Supreme Court too, that I feel like. So one of the things I try to stress is like we shouldn't look for institutional fixes to problems that are like real in American society. So for instance, if we complain about gridlock in Congress, but we see that American society is legitimately like split 50-50 on every issue, then the goal isn't, well, we need to make it easier to pass legislation. The goal is like actually Congress is accurately surmising what the Americans believe right now about whatever particular thing. I feel like one of the big issues with the Supreme Court is because for whatever reason we've lost our ability to govern on controversial issues, we are relying so heavily on the Supreme Court to save us and give us legislative decisions that maybe should have come via constitutional amendment or at the very least maybe from congressional actions. Like how much liberal progress did we make in a society that was really just the Supreme Court, right? Casey, Dobbs, gay marriage, or all that, or like gay marriage, like all these things, right? Like either gaining it or losing it, right? I think that's a big problem. And I think that as long as you're looking to the Supreme Court, because when we're asking the Supreme Court to make a decision on something like abortion or gay marriage, Jesus Christ, like these are really loaded political questions that are,
I think I just finished reading a book on Josiah's recommendation, The Most Dangerous Branch, which is a sort of castigation of the current court, and the author locates the problems of the court
35 years ago.
On both sides of the aisle, both liberals and conservatives, as this sort of activist judiciary. And so it's kind of an offensive book to all people because the author I'm forgetting his name now because
Michael
I don't have it in front of me. No, different. Well, okay.
Most dangerous branch is Michael Stokes Paulson.
Fuck me.
Not the one I read.
I was gonna make
you
a
read
joke,
the
but it's
wrong
so
goddamn one.
I was gonna say I didn't know that I read anything.
I cannot
besides
find
stuff
a
from
Michael
Paulson.
Stokes Paulson one.
Jesus.
I read the David Kaplan Most Dangerous Branch. There is no Michael Stokes Paulson Most Dangerous. Is it an essay?
It's a PDF. It's most.
Oh well, then
it's his.
Okay.
Yeah,
well, that's an.
Yeah,
that's
1994. Most dangerous.
Oh well, then send me that. But so no, I was reading David. I was reading David Kaplan's thing. Well, I'm reading Paulson's Intro to the Constitution, which is great. I'm enjoying that. But anyways, Kaplan in his book, The Most Dangerous Branch from 2018, not the 90s, says, well, yeah, look, you have an activist court that in a series of decisions throughout the 20th century is effectively saying, look, the legislature is not doing good things, capital G good things, and we're going to come in and do good things. And so there are particular justices who have this bent more than others. Kennedy is one of them, and others. But yeah, so I mean, really, the inflection point for him is Bush v. Gore, where he says, like, yeah, this is where the court just basically gave up the ghost and was just like, yeah, we're just going to intervene in political conflicts where we think there's a right answer, but also thinks this is the case with Roe and others. So I think you're right. I don't think there's any way to argue against that. So
wait,
it would require both.
What was the rationale for even ending the recount in Bush v. Gore? I'm horrified to ask, but what was the
Pisco might know the case better than I do, but as far as I remember, the legal reasoning was basically the fact that some counties were doing manual recounting, some were doing the digital recounting, some weren't recounting at all. It was an equal treatment of the laws issue that the court was just like, you're handling this inappropriately.
Wait, was this a simple? Is this retarded to say? Was this like a rational basis versus strict scrutiny thing, where it's like you're unequal treatment of like some implied fundamental right or something? Or
I'll pass this to Pisco.
It's interesting because obviously there's no fundamental right
to have a vote recounted.
Well, hang on a second. Do you have a right to vote for President of the United States? That's the initial question. And the answer to that question, if you read the opinion, is no at the initial stage, right? Because states are selected to assign their electors in whatever manner they choose, right? That's the fact is we had states for many years assigning their electors, and there wasn't really elections in the sense that we understand them today. However, the court held that when the state chooses to have a general election for president, it becomes a fundamental right. Mm-hmm. And if there is differential treatment on the basis of a fundamental right, that in common equal protection grounds is strict scrutiny, right? So like, and you can think about this being applied to other impositions on the right to vote for president, right? Imagine that you were to put some crazy standard or test to vote for president. Well, maybe you could think, well, if you don't have a right to vote for president in the initial stage, why couldn't the state impose and say you have to have a PhD to vote for president? Well, we understand the right to vote once it's been granted for president to be fundamental. And I think that logic kind of makes sense. I don't even necessarily agree or disagree on the logic that it might have been an equal protection violation, but the problem was the remedy. They basically, and this I think was Steven's question, is like, why didn't they let them count it a different way? Was your question, right, Steve?
Yeah.
There's
the safe harbor deadlines by federal
for
and
the
statutory.
ECA,
yeah, and I think there's a state one too. Those ones they said they couldn't comply by that date. That's the 5-4 of it. That one of them would have created alternative remedies, one side, and the other would not. It said, it's all done. We can't do something. It's too late, which is insane to think about these days, especially given Trump's challenges.
Desire to push that out
is a preposterous ruling. Like, obviously what matters more, if you're going to spend all this time talking about a fundamental right to vote, what matters more is the fundamental right
is having the vote counted, not whether it's done on the 14th or the 16th. Was this a 5-4 decision, or
the equal protection part wasn't 5-4. I think there was more on the equal protection component of it, but the remedy part I think was 5-4. The fact that they would stop the counting was strictly 5-4.
Damn.
But it was a bad decision, super bad. And it's so unfair if you look back these days, like Al Gore didn't get a single fucking recount. Not one, bro.
Yeah. So I agree with you that, the court has taken on a role that I think this has been I hesitate to say this because I think it gets weaponized, obviously, on the right, but it has been the quote-unquote conservative case for a while. It's like, well, here's these activist decisions like Roe and Casey, which even people like RBG were saying at the time, and from then on, we're like, yeah, this is like out of step and out of bounds, like probably should have been done better. But yeah, I don't know what the easy solution is. I just don't like Josiah's solutions. He's bad and dumb and wrong.
I still don't have the solutions. I'm just saying that Michael Stokes Paulsen wrote a really persuasive paper.
Well, now I'm going to go read the paper where I've been reading a book before.
Constitutional interpretation. And again, I just go back to, I feel like our current conception of judicial review is effectively, de facto, judicial supremacy. And I do think not only is that just absurd on its face, in my opinion, given that we are in a constitutional democratic republic, that the least democratic institution has the final say and is the de facto, top dog. Not only is that just absurd on its face, it also contradicts what the founders intended when they intended the judiciary to be the weakest branch. Weaker, yes, than the president. Yes, it was Congress first, then the president, then the courts.
I do buy the argument, and we hashed this out the last space we did, but I do buy the argument that Hamilton advances in Federalist 78 that like the final right of interpretation does not imply superiority. It implies that there is a law that's superior to both the legislature and the courts.
Yeah, but if you speak for that superior law and you're the only one who does, what's the difference?
I think Hamilton articulates it well and correctly, and you disagree with Hamilton, and so you are on the shaky ground.
I'm wrong and stupid.
Yes, exactly. You're on the shaky ground of thinking the Federalist Papers are wrong about something. How could you?
Here's my issue with all this. Like, all these ideas are nice to remake the core to a better version of what it should be, but is there any actual practical way of going about it outside of what I already laid out that would even be remotely palatable to the population?
I think of the things I've heard you guys bandy about, an ethics standard I feel like should be palatable to most people. I know that, again, Republicans.
If you look at how to get it, that's the issue, is how to enforce it.
I think Josiah, again, like you have people who are saying, well, you make the court have a self-enforcing standard, or the other alternative I've heard is that Congress just says, here are the standards by which we determine when we're going to impeach you. So those are the two paths that I've heard.
So the way Sheldon Whitehouse phrased it was by effectively just by federal statute creating under the judiciary their own fact-finding and enforcement mechanisms that would sidestep a potential constitutional crisis or sidestep the court's ability to reject it, because it would be putting the power in the court's hands. The Congress would simply mandate that there be a binding code of ethics with an enforcement mechanism, and then you kind of sort it out yourselves. But this idea that it's just a gentleman's agreement isn't going to cut it. Now, others would say that's capitulating too much to a rogue court, so you would have to try to mandate it into law. Here are the standards, here are the penalties, but that, of course, then
you're saying let the court enforce it. Isn't your whole thing that the court is itself like this rogue branch? And so if your issue is the whole issue is who is doing the enforcement, you don't want the court to have it, and that's a fundamental bedrock here.
Right. So I'll say again, that was Sheldon Whitehouse's proposal in his legislation, that there basically be an inspector general created, a fact-finding process, enforcement standards, and that the court under the Chief Justice that would be the body that figured it out. I do agree that there are obvious issues with that.
Yeah, you just want to get rid of Marbury, and you want to get rid of the court's authority to overturn the political branches.
I would definitely like to see the Supreme Court.
I just want to say, would you overturn Marbury? I think the answer is yes.
I think that I would.
This is why I was yelling at him about this.
I would interpret Marbury the way that Michael Stokes Paulsen does, which Marbury does
is
not
different than Marbury now.
No, well, it's definitely different from the consensus now.
But can you give a straight answer? You're so political these days.
I think you know what this is? So Pisco is tired of getting reamed on Merrick Garland, and he's trying to flip the script so badly.
Bro, I could smoke you right now on that if you wanted.
Listen, I think it's great. I'll just appeal to attorneys general like Eric Holder, acting deputy attorney general Sally Yates, who recently on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart said that she felt that Merrick Garland could have acted more quickly. I understand that you think he did things perfectly at his perfect.
It's so funny. You blame the Supreme Court for everything except for the fact that they never had these cases happen before the election.
Y'all are going to be arguing about this when you're old men on rocking chairs on your front porches. You're going to be
so you agree with me. I have a desire to agree to this. You agree, right, that the cases were slated to happen before the election if it weren't for the Supreme Court, right?
My argument is not that Merrick Garland could have acted in a way which precludes shenaniganery by the Supreme Court of the United States. But I think it's perfectly fair to say that given the approximate year between Garland's confirmation and any meaningful action taken against Donald Trump on the January 6th case, that was entirely too long.
Well, can we examine that? I want to linearize it a little bit.
Sure.
You don't blame Merrick Garland, right, for the documents case, right? We can put that to the side.
Just say we don't need to discuss it right now. Don't put that to the side.
Wait, no. I want to exclude it.
I don't.
We're going to linearize this.
I'm thinking of the January 6th case when I complain about Garland.
I know, but that's why I want to just get rid off the table.
10 months?
If I remember correctly, wasn't the National Archives, didn't the National Archives and the FBI play footsie with Trump
10
for
months.
about a year as well?
Wait. So the referral to the Department of Justice from that time to when they actually charged, do you believe that Merrick Garland deserves any criticism for delay between the referral and when they charged Donald Trump?
What was the timeline for the referral from the National Archives?
As you sit here, is it your position?
No, it's not.
Okay.
I'm open to it. But I also don't think the National Archives, which contributed to the delay, I don't think they reported.
Okay, so we'll put it on the side right now, but it's safe to say that currently, as we sit here, you are not accusing Merrick Garland of delaying on the documents case. That is not currently your position.
No.
Okay, so now let's deal with the elephant in the room. Do you agree that before Merrick Garland is in office, you can't blame Merrick Garland before he's in office for any delay? Okay.
Correct.
And you've acknowledged that the investigation didn't start with the special counsel in November 2022.
Correct.
Okay. So really the delay we're talking about is from March 2021 to April, a little bit before then, maybe 2022.
I think that's
about a year.
I think he was confirmed in March of 2021. But I can't remember when the investigation began. Was it April?
That's in the Washington Post article that you bandy about. They allege that the investigation started in April.
Perfect.
Okay, so I just want to say right off the bat, everyone who's like they waited 2-3 years, all this shit is already like talking bullshit.
Good. You take it up with them, motherfucker. You're not talking to that person here.
From the time of the investigation, so because I think we can agree, from the time of the investigation into the actual indictment, you wouldn't accuse them of having an improper delay. It's not really the time between investigation and indictment isn't the problem. It's the time when you start the investigation. Fair?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So really, we're just talking about one delay. The delay, that year delay.
Only a year. You're right.
Okay. So
minuscule, paltry.
I think that the case is strong, that these cases would have gone to trial if the Supreme Court didn't go rogue on absolute immunity. We would have had these cases. And if you're thinking totally politically, right in the summer of 2024, right before the election. So if all you're doing is thinking about this like Machiavellian politically, if the court had done what people thought that they would have done if they were behaving properly, which is just deny Trump's applications and affirm unanimously the D.C. Circuit.
It's not about the political result, because if that were the case, I would not have advocated for the indictment to be made against Trump or an investigation into Trump until he announced that he was running for president. That's an incidental effect. There should have been a conclusion. Merrick Garland should have acted in a way to try to bring this to a conclusion as quickly
before the election, because he could have won.
No, it has nothing to do with the election.
Well, he would have had justice if he didn't win, right?
In theory, if the Supreme Court had really wanted to, there still could have been a trial before the election.
Yeah, wait. I think that if the Supreme Court had acted appropriately, we would have had trials in the summer. And you would not have been complaining about, you would have said Merrick Garland has timed this perfectly. Wouldn't you?
No, I wouldn't have. There needs to be a conclusion to this. And I think that, yes, you can blame it on the Supreme Court, or at least most of the lion's share of the blame for the Supreme Court acting in the way they did in terms of delays and, of course, the disastrous Trump v. U.S. decision. But we can look back
relatively
and say,
speaking, how much blame? Because if I were to gauge between the DOJ's actions and the Supreme Court, I would put, in terms of the trial not happening before the election, 99.99% on this is what I've said before. 60% on the Supreme Court, 39% on the American people, and 0.0001% on Merrick Garland.
How do the American people impact the timeline for
the fact that we're not going to have a trial ever for these cases?
I got a question for you while you're on this topic. How much blame do you lay at the House Republicans and the states actively getting in the middle of the investigation and demanding everything from Garland and Smith?
No, that was nothing. That didn't. I don't think that affected anything. I have no reason to believe that affected anything. And I think, frankly, remember the Supreme Court granted an application to like expedite the case, the second one that they filed, I think. So if they had just brought it sooner, the Supreme Court would have just delayed longer.
Didn't they deny one first?
They denied the first one, but the second. But secondly, I think there was a motion to expedite it faster, and I think they granted that. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, this was on an expedited basis after they took the appeal from D.C. And if he would have just brought it earlier, the Supreme Court would have just found another way to delay the case even further.
So I can't speak for you, Pisco, but one of the things I like to do when I'm confronted with a failure is that I do everything in my power to bring about the correct outcome, an outcome being a trial and a conclusion. And I don't think Merrick Garland can say that. And that I'm not a lawyer, so you have me at a disadvantage, but I can cite Eric Holder, I can cite Sally Yates, I can cite that Washington Post article, which includes DOJ officials and prosecutors, Glenn Kirshner and others as well, Ellie Honig from CNN, who is hardly, some sort of like, wildly progressive figure. It's not like it's Elie Mystal. This is a guy who, by the way, thought that the New York case against
he's
Trump
out there, and his analysis of the New York case sucks. It's really bad, and he says it's improper. And he makes mistakes. He makes very blatant mistakes in that analysis.
Yes, that the people who agree with me run a gamut, and also some of them have occupied the same position as Merrick Garland. I don't think you can defend that year gap, especially when we have credible reporting to indicate that much of that was attributed to Merrick Garland being worried about the politicization of the Justice Department. As far as I'm concerned, that's fucking stupid. Your job is not to focus on politics. Your job is, if you see evidence of a crime or potential crime, you pursue it.
This is how they started the investigation, and you can disagree with it, and you can say whatever, right? Sure. I think what has been established by the reporting that you're talking about is they started with the people who assaulted the Capitol. And there were three different, I identify, this is my conceptual analysis. If you disagree with it, that's fine. You can, but I identify kind of three different prosecutorial pathways that they could have taken. One is the conspiracy meeting of the minds with the actual people who rioted and who were the insurrectionists and the people on January 6th. That's one pathway. The second is the incitement pathway, where yes, Trump is involved. He's an insurrectionist. You could charge insurrection. You can charge incitement. That's kind of the second pathway. And the third is this kind of fake electors, broader conspiracy pathway. And it seemed like Merrick Garland was focused, and the DOJ was focused broadly on the first, which is look at the actual actors, start with the people who were violent that day, start with the easy cases, start funneling them. In retrospect, it's easy to say that was a big fucking mistake. But don't you think isn't that just kind of splitting hairs at this point? I mean, it could have been the case in another universe that there was an actual meeting of the minds between people in the Trump camp and the specific insurrectionists, right? There could have been evidence that said Donald Trump's chief of staff was communicating with the Proud Boys. We know now that we don't have that smoking gun. But
Stone was talking with them the day before, right? I don't know what Stone's associated with Trump.
No evidence that goes to Trump, right? We don't have that link to Trump on that specific thing. But it could have been there. And after the fact, you're saying it was so stupid to focus on the violent people first. But that's just because now we know the facts by light of day.
Especially, why not both? The FBI is 35,000 employees. Why not both? Why not knowing what we saw Donald Trump do on January 6th, again, potential, was there not a predicate, even if obviously you weren't going to file charges that day, but was there not just prima facie evidence from January 6th alone and all the things leading up to January 6th? Was there not predicate to have an investigation day one?
I think you mean the day after January 6th to have an investigation. Of Donald Trump specifically.
It depends on what the charges are, I think, right?
Yeah. So here's the issue with a lot of this. And Stephen has found this out, and he's done it beautifully in showing how all these things connect. The alternative election scheme, in retrospect, was central to everything happening that day. And even the incitement, I wish he should have charged insurrection and incitement, but those crimes under the high standards of Brandenburg require intent, require knowledge, right? And all of that is premised on the alternative elective scheme. And it is true that we had knowledge before January 6th that they were doing these kinds of things. We didn't have like a true understanding of how pernicious, how systemic all this was until the facts came out. It took a while to even for Stephen, right? And for other people like that to come to the understanding that, holy fuck, this was a massive conspiracy. And that actually took a lot of time. And the legal theories, they are novel. And they require a ton of circumstantial evidence. We never have Donald Trump on. Well, there is some smoking guns, but it's never as simple as Donald Trump saying something like, "Oh yes, I know that the election was completely lost, and we're doing this evil Machiavellian thing." When we have these kinds of high threshold standards,
I mean, we got a lot of quotes from Trump. Just call the election call the election corrupt and leave the rest to me and the Republicans.
Yes,
I mean,
I understand that. What I'm saying is because our this is just for incitement. Our standard for these charges are so high. Even something where it's like play out in the day, right? He's inciting the crowd very clearly and obviously. Because it exists in the context where the standard is so high, you actually need quite a bit of circumstantial evidence to build a case that, right? And every time people are like, they question Stephen and they're like, he said be peaceful, he said be peaceful. Stephen always starts with, let's look at the context here. We have to start with the lies that happened in 2020. And the reason he does that is because he's building the case brick by brick. And these are complicated cases.
No, I listen. I understand. I think you're making a pretty credible case as to why they didn't bring charges weeks after January 6th. But I'm talking about predicate for an investigation. And I'm looking here because it has been a minute since I looked at that WAPO article. I forgot about this, but the article cites that Trump supporters boasted publicly that they had submitted fake electors on Trump's behalf weeks before January 6th. But the Justice Department declined to investigate the matter in February 2021. So right there, Pisco, I'm not saying that they had sufficient evidence to indict, but did they not have predicate to at least probe the faked elector scheme? They declined in February.
Wait. Here's the question. Here's the question. When was Jack Smith appointed?
In November 2022.
Okay, so how many hours was it after Biden's lawyers turned in that document that a special counsel was appointed for the Biden investigation?
It was very soon, quickly after.
It was it was either the day of or the next day, right? Why is it that Jack Smith wouldn't be appointed to begin the investigation?
Because Jack Smith, right? The only reason that this happened under Jack Smith at all was because Trump announced his intention to run for office. The investigation was happening before Jack Smith was appointed under the main DOJ. The rationale, and this would even call into question, like Josiah, when he says you shouldn't be worried about political perception, then you shouldn't be against Jack Smith's appointment at all. Because the only reason that Jack Smith was appointed special counsel and the investigation went under the special counsel as opposed to just the Department of Justice was because Donald Trump announced his election. That's why they happened on the same day. People like Cenk Uygur are idiots, and they pretend that this is a political move, that once Trump announced, they announced a special counsel because it was political to try to harm him, and they weren't going to charge until he announces for president. But it's not the case. The announcement of a special counsel happened because of the appearance of impropriety. That's why it's on the same exact day. But the investigation, as Josiah's own article stakes out, happened months and months before. Months and months before. The specific pathway of the false elector scheme happened in early 2022. So the delay is less time than people say. It's about a year. That's the delay.
When did the J6 committee end and deliver its findings?
Let's look it up. I don't know.
It was right before, or it was right before or after the midterm election. So it was late 2022.
Yeah, I would have assumed that's where they were wrapping up that investigation, delivering the information to the Justice Department. And then
but what's interesting is, as this article discusses, it's only after the House starts to really probe the fake elector scheme that the Justice Department rushes to catch up. One person directly familiar with the department's new interest in the case said it felt as though the department was reacting to the House committee's work as well as the heightened media coverage and commentary. Quote, only after they were embarrassed did they start looking into something that they declined to do a year before. But meanwhile, the House of Representatives, they found ample predicate to begin probing this. And so to me, this kind of builds into my frustration. And again, not just mine, but Ellie Mistal's, Ellie Honig's, Eric Holder's, Sally Yates, which was they clearly believe that there was enough there to start digging the day after Merrick Garland.
So do you blame all these other these state attorney general's offices? So Fulton County didn't open their investigation until May 2022. That's after the DOJ. Michigan, they're
wait. If the Fulton County didn't open theirs until May 2022, when did the Jan 6 committee present their stuff?
That was in late 2022, I believe, in December.
Was the J6 committee or commission kind of like publishing stuff though ongoing leading up to, or did they?
Yeah, they were. I mean, they were having open hearings.
Because here's something that was a little disappointing to me is, and I could be wrong. Actually, it feels really shitty to say this. I don't think I'm wrong. I think most of the investigatory work that went into the Jan 6 stuff, unfortunately, came from that House committee, which didn't have the sharpest teeth, right? It would have been like, it's pretty crazy that if you read that whole J6 report, you basically know everything, at least publicly, more or less that's been alleged by the Jack Smith indictment. And that's working with the federal prosecution powers that can eat through things like some of your executive privilege stuff that was being, flouted by other members of Trump's inner circle, right? That the House couldn't penetrate at all. They weren't allowed to even depose a lot of those people. So it was a little disappointing to see that the House felt like they made all the progress on that, and then Georgia kind of picked it up from them, and then it feels like, maybe not, but it feels like Jack Smith kind of picked it up from them. Like I would expect that the DOJ was the one that was going to be punching through most of that. But
I can meet you halfway and say, so maybe I would say, and this is why I do, a few months here or there, 4 or 5 months, maybe I would say, okay, they probably should have started it 4 or 5 months before. I give them a lot of grace that they were started and initiated and being a part of the largest single investigation in the department's entire history. Okay. And I give that grace. I give the grace that other state prosecutors, they didn't come to that determination until much later. And they kind of followed the House of Representatives as well a little bit. And
yeah, but how would the state, the state prosecutors, like if you're Georgia, like, fuck, how do you even begin? Like, you don't have standing to go after the president doing weird improper
it's your
things.
Election. But those are your fake slates of electors, right?
But you can go after maybe the fake electors themselves. But to start like probing into Trump's inner circle and Eastman's theory of how everything was going, like, would you have the ability to even, as a state attorney, to go after a federal officer like that? Like,
you have more power.
The supremacy clause would probably interact with that.
You have more power to compel testimony than Congress did. The DOJ, and this is one of the reasons why I understand the frustration, because the DOJ had a lot more persuasive power. They have a lot more tools.
You have power to compel, but what are the crimes that we're even alleging here? Because everything in DC is off the table, right? So there is no.
So crimes related to their slates of those could be crimes under state law, and so you could use your same state subpoenas to get the same kinds of documents that relate to the same kinds of fraud in your state, and that's what they've done.
So we have 7 states now. So when we say all the states attorneys, we only have 7 states really that we're talking about. And then it's going to have to be the ones that had probable cause of, and we're only going to be subpoenaing on the crimes of who was a fake elector. So I feel like this investigation already doesn't have very long legs unless you get some crazy testimony or something, right? But the big theory, the big legal theory that the J6 was based on, like the obstruction of rights and all of this, like these are more or less like federal statutes. Obviously, it's a federal case that's being implicated here, right?
But they allege kind of the same. They're based on a lot of the same evidence. I know they relate to things beyond that. They can relate to for example, the certification of the vote, where the states can't really do that, even though they have to like sort of lock in other ways to that specific proceeding.
But like the RICO thing in Georgia, right? Do you agree or disagree? Yeah. Without the J6 commission, without like Jack Smith, if it's just Georgia's never doing that RICO case. I don't think.
I think it's a lot harder. I think it's a lot. I think, but keep in mind the district attorney, she started it before the findings came out, before they even started doing the open hearings in May 2022.
Yeah, she might have started the investigation for sure, but I don't think that they ever get to.
Sorry, I think it might have been after some of the hearings, but.
Oh, sure. But I don't think we ever get like an actual big indictment for like a big RICO thing, because what's even our grand conspiracy to just fuck with the Georgia election?
Rudy Giuliani lied and tried to manipulate workers there. without authority to get access to items. It was a big RICO case. It was actually probably the strongest of the states. The only problem is that they chose, well, I don't know if they chose Fannie, but Fannie was the one running it. And if it was somebody that wasn't fucking hiring their boyfriend, they would have had a lot more legs.
Sorry, I'm looking at some of the dates. The first hearing was on June 9th, 2022, and Fani Willis opened her investigation before that in May 2022. So they didn't have all this information. Now, maybe,
well, but it sounds like the fact that this was years later means that they were waiting on something public, right? If they didn't even open their investigation until 2022.
Sure. Yeah, I would maybe look into it. I might be looking into it.
I guess like the thing that feels shitty, we're like rehashing our whole debate from 8 hours ago. The thing that feels shitty is that it's like, okay, like you're saying like, well, it was only a year that Merrick Garland paused on this, or maybe less, and it was only like 2 years that it took for this to happen. Then meanwhile, when we go over to the Republican side, it's not that they wait 6 months, and it's not that they even started immediately. It's that, you know, Ken Starr spends 4 years digging. For Hunter Biden, they spend 4 years digging. For Hillary Clinton, they spent years digging, and they're not even waiting for like probable cause. That's like a post-dated check to them. Like they don't even care if they have like a crime here. And then even regardless of the outcomes of the investigations, they're still just going to act like they won. like if you talk to most Republicans, they would agree, oh yeah, Hillary Clinton clearly broke the law on the document shit and the Benghazi shit. Yeah, and the Hunter Biden crime family is real. And they're like,
and I know you know this, and I know that you're not describing this to me, and I'm not trying to be a dick. I'm truly not defending Republicans who I think are deplorable, all this shit. It's complete double standard. I totally agree with you here. I'm here attacking what the Supreme Court did and defending what I think Merrick Garland from unfair criticism. I think you can criticize the DOJ for a couple things. I think that you can because I think if they had started their investigation in like November 2021, let's say, would you guys be complaining that much? Maybe not. I think what we're talking about here is like a reasonable window, and maybe that like early 2022 date is a touch outside the window. So maybe I blame them a little bit for some delay. I don't blame them for a year's worth of delay. I think that's too much. And maybe I'm mad that they didn't indict for insurrection. I'm mad that they didn't indict for incitement, and they didn't really go down those paths very much. And so I give a little bit of blame there. But these cases were gonna go in front of a jury before the election. The only thing that made that the primary proximate thing, the most important thing that made that impossible is when the Supreme Court issued effectively a stay so they could issue their preposterous ruling on absolute immunity. And I think that this Supreme Court would have found a way to delay this case even further. Now, I don't think they could have done that if the investigation started like literally maybe the day of January 6th into the fake electors. Maybe you have me there. Maybe then the Supreme Court couldn't have done that. But I do think that if we're within that window, the Supreme Court could have found some way, and that on the trajectory those cases were going on, we would have had trials if the Supreme Court hadn't overstepped and given their bananas ruling. And if that had happened, you guys there'd be nothing to say about Merrick Garland. The case.
I'm sorry, but as somebody that's watched a lot of suits, Harvey Specter would call you a loser if you're blaming the judge. Okay, on the outcome of your case. Just saying.
Come on, bro. Like,
but yet you're right. Maybe in an alternate universe we wouldn't be complaining about Merrick Garland, but we're in this one where again, here's how I look at it. And again, I say this as a relatively well-educated layman. I'm not an attorney. You have me at a huge disadvantage there. But it seems to me that if we look back and we say, okay, well, the Supreme Court notwithstanding, did the Justice Department do everything in its power to investigate, prosecute, and bring a conclusion to this situation to the best of their ability? I don't think so.
They were a little slow. What I'm going to say is they were a little slow. I agree there were some months delay. I'll meet you there. I agree that they didn't vigorously pursue insurrection and incitement. I thought they should have. I think that is a shame. The reason I give them grace is because it's the biggest investigation in history of the DOJ. They were scrambling. It's a new administration. A lot of different shit was happening. I agree it's the most important, but the primary blame has to go on the Supreme Court. And I'm sorry to say because I love them, the American people.
I just want to. I'm not saying. And again, I can't speak for Steven. I'm not saying that it's single-handedly Merrick Garland's fault. I'm just saying that is a fault point. And the other thing I'll say is it's not just the delay. It's the reasons that, or at least some of the reasons for the delay, some of the rationale, which was Merrick Garland was concerned about the reputation of the DOJ. And I think in hindsight, it's like that got him nothing. And I've been saying to this
so they shouldn't have appointed Jack Smith as a special counsel then.
I shouldn't have appointed AG Garland
Right?
if he's going to worry about it.
Wait, so like, why would we appoint a special counsel if we shouldn't care about the reputation of DOJ?
You're right. That's the only purpose. That's the only reason you would appoint a special counsel. But don't you think that there's a qualitative difference, a substantive difference between, okay, we're concerned about the reputation of the DOJ in the sense that, here you have a candidate for office who is a member of the opposing party of my current boss. So, we'll have 1 degree of separation by immediately appointing a special counsel who has some degree of independence from this DOJ. I think that that's qualitatively different from another form of concern about the DOJ's reputation.
We can't be saying go after Trump.
Right. I'm sorry. I think
that as
impressions.
Different. I take that as impressions of people. I don't take it as gospel. If it's true, like, that's bullshit. You shouldn't be being guided by, hey, I don't want to look like I'm going after Trump. What I think what they were saying is like, I don't know. I wasn't in those calls, but those are impressions, right?
Let's get a crude metaphor. Let's get.
Oh wait, we don't need a metaphor. Wait, fuck a metaphor. Let's just look at a direct comparison, right? Was there a special prosecutor for the investigation of Donald Trump?
There was.
For the Crossfire Hurricane stuff and all of that, right? But what?
Not until he fired Comey.
Exactly. So why was it assumed that investigation was fine until Trump took a horrible action? But it was assumed that under Biden, oh God, we can't even risk it. We need a special prosecutor immediately as soon as Trump announces he's running for.
Because Trump was not a target of Crossfire Hurricane until he fired Comey. That was when he started being a target of the investigation. And the minute he was a target of the investigation after he fired Comey, Rod Rosenstein appointed a special counsel once he became a target. And he became a target when he fired Comey. That's why a special counsel was authorized then and not before.
Okay, that's a good answer.
He was a target because of...
I don't care. Move on. Next topic. Fuck you.
So brass tacks. Let me ask you this. If somebody had pitched to Merrick Garland, let's get really crude, and said, Mr. Attorney General, we should probably go from the bottom-up approach because if we go after Trump immediately, it would be seen as political. What would the appropriate response have been from Merrick Garland in your mind?
I think if he's basing it on, it would seem political to go after Trump, and that's why we're not going to do it. That would be wrong.
Presumably, the answer would be whoever recommended that. That's not going to be a reason that we do or do not pursue Trump. Not going to delay an investigation.
Right. It's a balance because one of the complaints of Hunter Biden stuff is that the predicate for some of those digs weren't strong enough, right? And the DOJ had just come out of this embarrassing moment in Crossfire Hurricane where there actually was a lot of egg on the face of the DOJ. I mean, you guys kind of underplayed a little bit, but there were some problems in the Crossfire Hurricane that we sort of talked about. Now, I don't think that makes the investigation illegitimate. I don't think that makes the indictments that were found under Crossfire Hurricane or Mueller report illegitimate. But the department was embarrassed because there was some genuine misconduct. I mean, hell, some guy was charged in the DOJ for blatantly lying on one of the
evidence.
Yeah.
But I don't understand why you can't split the baby on this. Why can't you say, hey, listen, we have prima facie evidence that this guy might have committed a crime. You're starting the investigation now, but goddamn it, we're not going to bring charges unless we're sure. What's that expression? Don't go for the king unless you get the king or whatever.
Would it be legitimate for him to be like, listen, I want to do a fake electors right now. We want all hands on deck for the people who were attacking. We want to find out the conspiracy of the people involved here. We need to use all of our resources to go after the ground level people. Would that be a legitimate decision? Especially if this case had gone another way, you would be praising it, right? Praising the fact that they would spend their resources going after the people who literally attacked the Capitol. I don't think that's such a far out there decision policy wise, if that was the rationale. And I think it explains a lot of the delay. I don't think it explains all of it. I think you have a point there, but I'm going to put that so low on the list of the reasons this case is not going to go to justice compared to the Supreme Court and the American people not caring. I think that of those things, we disagree on the scale of it. And you're going so hard against Garland, who, in my opinion, in every other respect, has been an exceptional steward of the Department of Justice and has done real advocacy in terms of antitrust, in terms of drug enforcement, in terms of all this shit. I thought he's been doing a great job, and I've been really proud of his work. But you guys are throwing him under the bus because there's been this delay, and there was a little bit of delay, when really the target should be the Supreme Court's ruling. That's what you should be spending all your energy on, in my opinion.
Well, Stephen points out I hate the courts. I have a lot of ire for the Supreme Court. I'm just saying, I I said it already. I think that at the end of the day, I would like to be able to say, I did everything in my power.
You call me a cuck. You call me a cuck.
I call you a cuck.
You call me a cuck.
I've implied it many times. Steven's called you a cuck. I've said all kinds of other shit about you, but I've never called you a cuck.
I think that we're all. I hear you. I understand like the frustration. I just don't want to venture into Hassan level, and I know that you're not. That's not what you're advocating for. But what Hassan said was,
"Oh fuck, peace." Because Joe Biden, he's about to say it, blue MAGA. Oh no, don't let him do it. Don't let him get you with that one. Don't let him get you with that one.
But see,
okay, I've got a question for you.
Wait, can I finish this? Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Hassan said, and other people have said this. I think Kyle Kalinske or Crystal Ballman have said this to Hutch, but they're like, or maybe to you, Josiah.
To me and Hutch.
Yeah, it might have been to you and Hutch. Yeah. That what Joe Biden should have done is brought Joe Manchin into an office and said, listen, bud, listen, Buster, if you don't vote the way I want you to vote, I am going to send the DOJ after you. There are people who actually think that. And I want to venture away from that. Everyone has their lines. I think that we need to become more based and more fucking killers in the Democratic field. I think we need to give less of a shit and have some fucking awesome strategies. But I'm worried about becoming what I hate. And I don't want to use the awesome prosecutorial power to achieve political ends. And I don't hear you saying this, Josiah, but I hear some other people saying, if Merrick Garland had acted sooner, we would have won the election. And if that's what's motivating this, I think that is, we are now saying that we want the DOJ to achieve political ends. And I don't want that to be the rationale.
I don't know if we would have won the election, because I think it's entirely possible that the American people or cognitive dissonance
and you don't want to hear this. And you don't want to hear this, but it's fucking true. And this is going to be your black pill. And I've said this at the election. The American people are the ultimate safety valve. And one of the things they're voting on when they vote for president, they know that they're the chief executive. One of their main responsibilities is law enforcement. And when the people of the United States, in one voice, even though it was close in many swing states and overall, tell you they're voting for this person to lead the Department of Justice, that almost is, I'm sorry, it's almost the safety valve of our justice system. They're telling us.
I don't think it was one voice.
Yeah, I know, I understand, but like, you know what I'm talking about, where like they're saying that it's okay. It's a pardon of sorts that the American people are giving over this conduct.
Here's my question: after President Biden issued that pardon for Hunter Biden, who was more upset by that, Kash Patel or Merrick Garland? Who was more upset that Hunter Biden was pardoned by his father, in your opinion?
I think Kash Patel was probably happy
that Hunter Biden was pardoned.
Yeah, I think that MAGA is happy about this. I don't think they're upset.
I think the angriest person is the special counsel who's still forcing the indictment.
David Weiss.
Yeah, he's still going for it.
Wait, is he trying? Did he file
something? He's going for it. He announced he's like, I'm not backing down because it hasn't been submitted yet. The pardon has not been officially submitted.
One of the reasons I don't agree with this, because I actually do agree that I don't think it's like material, but I don't think it helps Democrats. I don't like, again, people who are like, now Trump is going to be unhinged. That's insane. And you should ridicule people who say it's going to make a material difference.
I don't think
it helps Democrats. I think it helps.
I don't know what helps. I don't know what helps Democrats.
I think it's a double. I think anything
what helps Democrats. What helps Democrats? I don't think not pardoning Hunter Biden would have helped Democrats.
Yeah, I don't think it's a huge deal anyway. But if it's going to help someone, I think it gives some good messaging for MAGA. I don't think it makes a humongous difference, but it helps them a little bit. And I think that they're not that upset about it. I don't see MAGA being like super angry about it. They get to make their podcast more money. They get to,
they get validation.
They
get to say, it's all as corrupt as we always said it was.
The argument that people use, and I agree with this, so it's the argument that I will use when we talk about like, oh well, the American people decided what they cared about. I think the whole point about having the trials is that can we at least see like what it is the American people think about these things by having them hear it, because the majority of people more people know about Burisma than anything having to do with Donald Trump and Mar-a-Lago and everything, right?
I don't know if I agree with that, and this is why, Stephen. Like I hear.
Wait, you don't know if you agree with what?
With the notion that the airing out of the trial would give. I agree. It would give more attention to it, but I don't think that it would meaningfully more inform the people about the nature of what's going on. And my evidence of that is like the New York case. The New York case, how many people truly know what's going on there. I think it's just
the New York case is a more complicated. Of all the four, you easily agree that that's the most kind of like legalese type case, right?
Yeah, I do agree with that.
I think of all the four, I think the Mar-a-Lago one is the most like. And again, people fixate on the retention of classified information. That's not even the sensational part of that. It was the obstruction.
Yeah.
And I think that hearing Donald Trump's quotes, having pictures with the wacky whatever clown song with people running around of Noctua running these boxes around where Trump is telling him to lie to the FBI, to lie to his own fucking employees. He's running these fucking boxes around the place. The pictures of the documents. I think that is a far more like, ooh, that's pretty fucked. Like the Mar-a-Lago case was like, that was like an easy.
Are people going to be watching the trial gavel to gavel? I mean, maybe more attention.
No, watching gavel to gavel? No, absolutely not. But the fact that I can talk to some guy who doesn't even know what the fuck, like who thinks Eastern Europe is a single country, can tell me the names of like a Ukrainian prosecutor, and the fact that Gazprom and Burisma, like, and it's probably not many Americans, but way like 10x or 100x of those of Americans know the names of these things than they do the Noctua, the employee. Well, then the fake electors or the guy that was running around. The fake electors is another. That's a really sophisticated plot. That's a scheme.
That's what I mean. I think it runs into the same kind of issues of.
I don't think so. Mar-a-Lago's not the same level. Mar-a-Lago's an easy one. Mar-a-Lago is Donald Trump saying like, I should have declassified these, but I didn't, and then putting them in a box and telling Nigel, I need you to hide that in the other room before my other lawyer checks.
The problem there is what people say is, and it takes someone like me to disentangle it. Oh, everyone has these documents. Clinton had them. Biden had them. And
but again, that's why I'm saying the public fixation. The public. It has nothing to do with the documents. The public fixation of the documents. It's the obstruction. Like they might have had those documents, but do you have a call? Do you have recordings? Do you have statements from like Clinton saying like, I need you to hide this shit?
There are obstruction theories for both the Clinton and the Biden case because I have ways factually and evidentially to distinguish these, but they get into the weeds. So Biden actually. The ghostwriter actually deleted all of those recordings. He actually deleted them, and they got some of them back, but not all of them. And Clinton's tech person actually wiped the server. And so, yes, I understand the facts there are much weaker on obstruction, and there's no indication that it goes past.
That server wiping one though, that's like fucking 40% of Americans probably know that, and they don't even know what an email server is. Like that.
Yeah,
that server
that's what I'm saying. Like, does it move the needle? Because everyone thinks, well, not everyone, unless you know the facts. What you hear is. Clinton wiped the server with acid spray. They wiped the server.
I think that did move the needle. I think that helped. I think people were like, yeah, that's a really bad thing. Nobody knows the facts of the Clinton case. Nobody gives a fuck. They care about that though.
But Trump, it's like moving boxes. He moved boxes. And I understand it's obstruction, obviously. But even the obstruction there is like, oh, he moved some boxes. It's just...
The obstruction is he told it's not. It's his lawyers came in to look for some documents and he called Noctua and he was like, I need you to fucking move these into a different room so she can't find them. I think I don't know. I mean, I understand like there's theoretically anything can be complicated. I'm just saying that on its face, like if you and I, gun to both of our heads, only one of us survives and you get the first pick. What would you rather make somebody with 75 IQ understand? What was wrong about the New York case or what was wrong about the Mar-a-Lago case?
Mar-a-Lago, for sure.
100%, you know?
My question would be is like the obstruction, like with the Mueller investigation, the public didn't really bat an eye to it. I wouldn't think they would bat an eye to the obstruction case for the documents.
Well, then you went into what Stephen is saying is that no one ever charged obstruction over Mueller, and Mueller didn't even come to determination there. So like what Mueller said was, we're not deciding whether Trump obstructed or not. And so what do we make of that? You know?
But I just want to be so clear on the difference here, right? Mueller said, this is my very narrow job. This is very narrowly what I'm supposed to do. And I'm just going to go ahead and walk my fucking nuts over to, the DOJ. And I'm going to give this to them and they can, here you go, publish what you want. Comey said, we're not recommending charges, but you better believe I'm going to make like 17 public fucking speeches about it. Like the difference
is... It's a double standard. Yeah, it's crazy. But Comey really fucked us over. And Comey, and I think Comey did the wrong thing. I think Comey did like the absolute wrong thing. So like when people say that's another reason why when they fire Comey, the Republicans have a great talking point, which is like everyone on the Democrats was calling for Comey to be fired after he did the shit about Clinton.
I believe that's what Trump said. Yeah, Trump literally said, I fired him because of the mishandling of the emails. They don't even know what the fuck you mishandled. Yeah, they're like, what? I don't know.
And the reason we all said it's bullshit is no one thinks like Trump was so happy with the way that Comey did that. Like he gave him the election.
Well, he could have fired if that was really what it was. He would have fired him on day one instead of dragging it out. So it's a bullshit predicate.
I just think that we have a judiciary problem. We had a judiciary problem and we had a people problem. I'm sorry to say we had a people problem, and those are the two components that I think carry the day in terms of not seeing justice for this stuff. And that, I'm not trying to say that like people are inherently stupid or anything like that. Like they can have a different preference scheme that they want. I think they're wrong. I think the people were wrong to not value this higher, but they didn't. And
I don't disagree with you, but this is something we have to start fighting like on all fronts. It can't just be one thing.
Yeah.
It's not just the Supreme Court that we need to rely on. It's not just our prosecutors being a bit more prosecutorial. It's not like just the media getting better. It's not like all of these things need to kind of be pushed on.
It's not just making Democrats.
Yeah, but don't spend a bunch of time like defending this pardon. I know you're not going to. And I'm kind of speaking more to your audience than to you guys, because I think you guys are well understanding that we shouldn't let this media cycle carry on further or like much longer. Don't let yourself be like defending this thing to the end of the earth. It's not cool for a president to be like, I love my son so much.
Yeah, I know, but like, here's my issue. I'll bet you money on this right now. There's more time is going to be spent on discussing this pardon than will be spent discussing when Donald Trump does the blanket J6
isn't that
pardon.
Partly just because like you could have just chosen to just say, yep, it was bad, move on, and then like refuse to continue.
I think that's the right. I think it's the right approach.
Just say, yep.
But I feel the unfairness because Trump
also screw Joe Biden, because who cares if we say screw Joe Biden?
I don't know how I don't know how accurate this is, or if my subreddit poster is like a retard. But like this guy posted the notifications from his fucking phone from Politico. And it's like 11 minutes ago, President Biden didn't just help his son with his pardon. He handed Trump a blueprint. Yesterday, 7:21, many of the governors and senators vying to become the future of the Democratic Party are declining to weigh in on the pardon. Yesterday, 9:09 a.m., Joe Biden's pardon of his son is a parting insult and a gift to Trump's attack on the justice system.
So why can't we all just throw Biden under the bus?
Well, hold on, or not deal with it. I agree we should. Biden. Or just say like, yeah, maybe you shouldn't have done it. But what about,
Joe Biden is dead, right? Not literally, but like he's dead. Right? He doesn't matter anymore. He never will matter ever again. No one in the Biden entire family will matter ever again in the history of America, right? So, like, why are we still, like, putting our neck out to be attacked for Biden?
Yeah, no, we shouldn't be.
Because it feels like a concession.
We shouldn't be. No. Hold on. Excuse me. Yeah, Gary Oldman, slow down over here, okay? I'm here because I love Gary Oldman. I'm here because Wick told me he wanted to do a panel on this pardoning. Okay.
All right.
Yeah, I want to see.
Fair.
I'm curious.
You got to choose your side.
I'm curious. Couldn't have been on. Yeah.
I'm curious where.
I understand.
Because the environment matters. It matters. I want to see the Republic.
Your argument wasn't agnosticism earlier. Your argument was not that it's like a small problem. Your argument was specifically that you're in support of the pardon. That's
in this environment, yes. In this political environment, I am. Yes. In this political environment, I am. Yes.
Okay.
If we lived in a different media environment, then sure, then we can have a different type of conversation. But like, I'll be waiting for the panels of all the Republicans talking about how sad they are that Trump has pardoned all the J6 people. Okay, I'll be waiting with bated breath for the Fox News coverage.
He doesn't want to give ground because I mean Trump's pardons are so fucking offensive.
They're egregious.
It's so disgusting. Yeah. Like I almost feel like Steven when I first heard it, I'm like fuck them all, like whatever. But at the same time, I just really understand that frustration, and so I think that's why he's not giving ground. I also think that's why he's not giving ground on like the assassination attempt. I don't know that it's the right calculation. It's not the right calculation in my mind. Yeah. I don't agree with it, but I think that's what's explaining Steven. And I do agree that more attention needs to be brought to like how fucking insane his like Trump's misconduct was in his first term. It's just so crazy. But yeah, I'm
just saying like out there.
It's like their side never has to play the defense game, right? Like the whole conversation today was like a massive defense game by Steven and by Josiah and by a bunch of people in terms of like why we have to defend what Biden was doing instead of just exclusively doing, nope, I'm not going to talk about it. Yep, it was fucked up. See, why can't you admit that you did all?
Somewhere out there, there are Democrats out there, okay, who have MAGA family members whose MAGA family members confronted them, okay, at like dinner or in some meal, and they were like, "Can you believe what Hunter Biden did?" And the Democrat family member said, "Oh, didn't he pardon his son from the deep state going after him?" And the Republicans are losing their minds. And for the first time ever, some of those Democrats were like, "Damn, you know what? I know why they do. Now it does feel really good. Yeah, he should have pardoned him. That was deep state corruption going after his son. It was the son of the president. Yeah, of course that was the deep state."
So the goal is to have like a more pleasant. I mean, it's past Thanksgiving, so this was done after Thanksgiving, but like a more pleasant Thanksgiving afternoon because you can like bully your Republican uncle? Like, what are we talking about?
Yes.
It's like, yeah.
Really? That's the goal?
I'm just saying, you're the kind of guy. You're the kind of guy who watches the shots at Fort Sumter, and you're like, okay, they seceded from the. What do you want us to do? All right, yeah, it's the Carolinas. Who the fuck cares? Like, okay, come on, we're gonna go to war. We're gonna go to war just because some states want to keep some slaves. Fucking war? Are you serious? That's crazy.
What are you talking about? I don't want to make decisions like this based off of what's going to be fun in my arguments with my uncle at Thanksgiving.
That's not the point. What I'm saying is, hold on. What I'm saying is, it's not even just the fun thing. It has to do, as jokey as it sounds, it has to do with things like morale and marching orders too. It feels really fucking good when you're a Republican and you can write everything off on the crazy deep state and you can excuse every single ill that your party does. And when you walk through the streets,
so we're rallying around
Can I give you a really good example, Quibbles?
Like, what are you talking about?
Quibbles, really good example. So on a recent Piers Morgan episode, Brian Tyler Cohen is up against Kevin Roberts, who is the president of the Heritage Foundation. During the course of the conversation, this Trump supporter unironically says to Brian Tyler Cohen, "Brian, you sound like a sore loser," and he smiles. And imagine being a Trump-supporting Republican and having the balls to say this
laugh in his face. Sure, Brian did.
The point is, to Steven's point, they delight in their shamelessness. Roberts isn't stupid. He knows, as an election denier, he's a sore loser. The reason he's smiling is his side won. Our side handled it differently. He knows we're morally superior. He doesn't give a fuck.
Tim Pool,
he's throwing it right back in
Tim
our
Pool
face.
tweeting out that the Krasensteins are getting paid by some foreign power to tweet that shit.
Oh
like,
that's
he did. He did.
I showed my students today, we're doing Congress in the courts, and I showed them clips from the 3 most recent Supreme Court confirmation hearings. And in the Kavanaugh hearing, Ted Cruz goes on this rant about how the Democrats who are suggesting that, we've got all these documents, you just gave them to us last night, we need to delay this hearing. Cruz is like, they just want to delay. That's all they want to do. And I paused it and just looked at my students. I was like, by now, this is ironic, right? Like, you get, there's this is very intentional. Cruz knows exactly what's going on here.
Are you indoctrinating your students to be Dems?
No, I'm just I'm having them watch the hearings, and it's hilarious.
That'll do it. But the whole thing that Stephen's arguing for is you have to try to make the Republicans feel pain, not shame, pain. And the only way to do that, as best I can tell at this point, and I think he's on board.
The Republicans are feeling pain as a result of the Hunter Biden stuff. What are we talking about?
No.
We are supposed to feel pain for it. Why? When we do the Hunter Biden stuff, you're like, oh my God, think about what the Republicans are going to do next, right? What are the Republicans thinking about?
I don't care about Hunter Biden at all. Hunter Biden is not a friend of mine. He's not some innocent group of people who are desperate for health care.
I'm just saying. No, it's not about that. It's not about that. It's about the implications of what we're worried about people doing. There is a reason why, and it's not just on Twitter, and it's not just on Piers Morgan. There is a reason why when that immunity decision came out, every Democrat was fucking horrified, and every Republican was fucking celebrating. And it's because they know that Biden is not going to be assassinating or going after his political opponents, and if Donald Trump does, they're going to cheer him on from the sidelines. That's the difference, and it plays out in very real political ways.
All right, I love, as the token conservative, I love the Democratic infighting, but I do need to go to bed.
You're conservative, you, Chris?
Yeah. Not MAGA conservative.
No, he's not MAGA. He's a good one.
Well, insofar as such a thing exists.
Do you label yourself as Republican anymore, or just conservative?
No, I've never been Republican. I think I'm a registered independent. Or I have been in states that require me to register.
What I love the most about him is he didn't say libertarian. I would have thrown up. That's what you call a shy Republican when they say that they're libertarian. So
no. I said earlier, one of my rules this year was I couldn't vote for an election denier, which meant in Tennessee I couldn't vote for any Republicans on the ballot. So
wait, did you not vote for Kamala?
No, I voted. I like the American Solidarity Party, if that tells you what kind of conservative I am.
Professor. No, it's funny. I dreaded asking him that question, so I wasn't going to because I knew he was going to break my heart.
I'm in Tennessee. Do you know the margin in Tennessee? Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
I get that. Well, have a good one.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm going to sleep too. But
Later, guys. Yeah, Josiah,
I'm not going yet.
I have a question for you, Josiah.
Yeah.
And I asked this of Stephen before.
Uh-oh.
Well, first of all, wait, you're against the pardon. Never mind. Well, this is what I asked, and I want your take on it. I think that if Biden had just like interfered with the DOJ right before sentencing and said, "Hey, you guys," I think that for all the same reasons of the pardon, said, "I'm ordering you to direct the special counsel to not proceed to sentencing and to dismiss the case." I think that Stephen would condemn that.
I don't know if Stephen would condemn it. I think that would defy the logic of the pardon. I genuinely believe it's not even necessarily about the two cases in particular. I think that's part of it, but I also think Biden has genuine reason to believe that even if Hunter had been sentenced, that would not have been the end of his public humiliation. And so I think that was also a preemptive attempt to prevent Kash Patel and others.
If he didn't focus on that as much, if he had done that, maybe I would have been more sympathetic of it. If he said this is to prevent future,
it was a decade long window. Like I think it.
I didn't dwell on that, and it doesn't make sense to just focus on Hunter in that case, and it should have been for other people. If that's his worry, then it shouldn't have just been Hunter.
Hunter was 100%. Especially targeted. They got blind dudes with laptops coming out against Hunter. I think he was a pretty particular target for him.
It is crazy to think
that was an unforced error. Let's point that out.
Well, hang on. It's crazy to think about that. Hunter was technically the genesis of the DOJ investigation began technically under President Obama. It evolved under President Trump. It continued under President Biden, and then he was investigated in a different branch by Senate Republicans and House Republicans.
And then wait, I'm sorry, you're talking about the investigation of Hunter Biden?
Yeah.
Yeah, that also, a parallel investigation started also in 2016 of just fucking Rudy Giuliani making phone calls also to Ukraine, like without even, the unofficial random fucking phone.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Giuliani should be indicted. I mean, Giuliani is fucking crazy.
Didn't fucking like Russians pretend to be Ukrainians and call in to Rudy Giuliani?
Maybe. Wait, Artemis, aren't you like a MAGA guy?
No. I didn't vote. I don't vote. I
see your every fucking super chat and I like you. You and I get along. Every fucking super chat you've ever made in a WIC panel has been pro-Trump, pro-Republican, anti-Democrat, anti-Biden, anti-Harris. I've not seen a single fucking critical anti-Trump super chat from you ever.
I don't need to. Trump is one of the worst presidential candidates ever to grace the United States. The only reason he got in is because, one, his opposition is retarded.
Who's better, Trump or Harris? Who's better?
Harris would have been better if you were wanting stability. Trump is better if you wanted
Trump or Harris. Who do you like better, Trump or Harris?
Neither.
So you're indifferent.
It's every centrist.
Yeah, I don't vote, so I don't have.
You're indifferent to your preferences over who's a better person. They're equal. Everyone that you don't vote for is equal in your eyes.
As much as people joke,
you're so full of shit.
No. Wait, I don't. I seriously.
How can they be equal when they're so different?
They're so different.
Because the way that my job works, my life is not affected by who is running as president.
Who the fuck is? I'm asking who you like more.
Are you the mayor of Mars? I don't even understand what. Okay.
What's better?
Do you like certain like fictional characters more than other fictional characters?
Yeah.
Okay, so why can't you like one person who doesn't actually affect your life?
You've leaked of the little you've leaked. You said you work in government. How can the president not impact your job at all?
Because the way that my government job works is that they get funding from research grants and stuff like that are not timed to.
They're literally talking about like doing efficiencies and cutting out wasteful spending, which must include grants.
Langford literally had the charts in Congress where he was talking about look at all these money we waste on all these stupid research grants. What did they bring up? The Uganda seatbelt thing,
they want to cut you first.
I am not in any way, shape, or form worried about my job.
Okay. Well, okay. Steven,
hold on. That may be there. I end up ruining the day of that decision. I just at this point in time I have no indication that.
And so you have no opinion over who you like better, Kamala or Trump, and you expect us to believe that
because I made more money under Biden than I did under.
Yeah, but who do you
Trump.
Personally like more?
I don't like Trump at all, and I have
no idea.
More than Kamala then at that point because I don't like Trump as a person.
So you like Kamala more, and Kamala's better if you're into that stability shit.
Because she was not around.
Who is the better political leader, Adolf Hitler or FDR?
Obviously FDR.
Okay, I mean, but they're not going to affect your life.
Well, no, because they're dead.
All right, so who's a better political leader, Kamala Harris or Donald Trump?
Oh, better political leader obviously would be the person who fucking got into office again.
Okay, never mind that. Steven, I have a question for you. Steven, I have a question. Who's your North Star? Because me and Josiah agree on this, that the pardon was bad. Aren't we your shining North Star to see?
Wait, Josiah says that the pardon was bad?
Yeah.
I think it was in a technical abuse of power.
Fuck
that was
you,
my stance
fucking
on it.
loser. Oh, what was the abuse? What are you supposed to pardon then?
You know why.
Here's
can't
my.
be abused.
You tell me where I'm wrong. I think as a general proposition, I'm very uncomfortable with presidents using the pardon power to benefit loved ones. I think that's a really sketchy use of the pardon power. I would actively support
Who are pardons for then?
It's for when the interests of justice demand.
Holy shit! Wait, Josiah, your shit is lagging like crazy, and your voice sounds way different.
I thought it was
So
Because it sounded like Pisco for a second, and your lips weren't moving.
There's no constitutional requirement, but yes, as a general proposition, you want to do it
it's the imaginary standards again. Okay.
What do you want me to say?
No, it's all good. It's all good. I've seen the way you and Pisco, make shit up. You're like,
If Joe Biden pardons every single criminal, would you say that's corrupt?
am I wrong? Am I making this up? Did Obama or didn't somebody pardon all the fucking nonviolent weed offenders?
Yeah, Obama did.
Biden.
Probably 1,000.
Was it Biden?
I thought President Biden pardoned all
nonviolent weed. Yeah, was that corrupt?
Well, I think if there's a legitimate, but I guess that's a good question.
You see how he stopped?
Wait, I'm gonna answer. Not necessarily. You're correct. But if let's say that he said something like this, I'm going to pardon all the criminals because I want the purge to happen.
Based?
Okay.
No, that would be bad. That would be bad. I would say probably.
Maybe. Yeah. So then pardons can be bad even though there's no applicable standard.
Okay.
In the Constitution.
Stephen.
Yeah. No. I don't disagree. That's why I was asking Josiah what made it corrupt, because we can imagine. Okay. Because I think that Stone's pardon was horrible. But go ahead.
So, do you think that the fact that Hunter Biden was his son, set the facts of the case aside, because I agree that if you took similar facts and put them to a different name, that these charges would have never been, it was very unlikely that these charges would have been brought in the first place. But do you think the fact that Hunter Biden was his son influenced his decision to make the pardon? Or was it just, this is a person.
It's so random.
This is a person who was prosecuted.
This is the issue. So there's two big issues with this question, okay?
Yeah.
The first is that I only can answer one way, because you're not going to believe me if I answer the other way. Because I think that he probably would have done it otherwise. But I think the second is an interesting ontological question where you're trying to ask me if I would feel differently about a thing while you're changing the properties of the thing itself. So would you still drink water if the underlying substance of water was something that killed you, but you got thirsty for water anyway or whatever? And it's the whole purpose of getting thirsty for water and drinking water is because it doesn't kill you. So it's very hard to separate these things out. The issue with the Hunter Biden pardon is that Hunter Biden, the pardon, was it personal? I mean, I'm sure to some extent, but here's a question. He only pardoned Hunter because he was his son. Do you think that Republicans went after Hunter because he was a legitimate criminal target, or only because he was Biden's son?
Because he was Biden.
So the issue at hand is that if we say no pardon should ever go to somebody that's so personal to a person, and the other side says, we're only going to be attacking people that are that personal to you, haven't you effectively crafted a self-defeating rule?
Listen, 100%. That's why I'm not going to lose. Wait a minute. I'm not going to lose. That's why I said I'm not going to lose sleep over the pardon itself. I don't think it's some sort of major moral transgression. It's hard for me in the moment to really divorce the fact that this is his son. And
well, sure. Here, we can test this real quick. Let's say Republicans come out 427 charges, big 427 charges against Hunter Biden. They pulled in D.C. every single camera of him over the past 10 years running red lights. And let's say they prosecuted that. They go to court. That's fucking footage. You're like, fuck, we got it. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, and it's so many. Pretend they're traffic, whatever. That's a criminal charge. Okay. And now Hunter is pardoned by Joe Biden. Is there any crime? Is there any type of conviction where you're like, fuck, I get it. Yeah, pardoning him here is fine.
No, I get even this one. I'm just saying, do we not agree when I know you believe this, that as a general proposition, you are not comfortable with presidents using the pardon power in a way which benefits their loved ones. I know. I would bet my life.
I'm going to be honest with you, because it's been taking me a long time to get through this, because I'm doing so much shit, okay? I haven't got to the Federalist paper yet on pardon powers. I don't even know why the fuck it exists, okay? But
right.
as my own like internal moral compass, there are probably ways where I can see like pardon being okay, and then there are probably ways where I can see pardon being like not okay.
Sure.
I can envision that, yeah. But it's just when people are targeting you because of their personal connection to you, and it like what it feels like, what gets scary is that like here's what you don't want. Here's the thing, okay? We both don't want both of these things, but I feel like you're only focused on one, and I'm trying to focus on both, okay? You don't want a teacher that's grading their student favorably. We all agree on that. That would be horrible.
Right.
But it's also really shitty when you have a teacher that is harsher on their child as a student than anybody else.
Yes.
And if this set of circumstances, the exact same, were to present themselves, but it was Hunter Clinton, I think he would also probably heavily consider pardoning him, and maybe I think he'd probably do it because it's so outrageous.
Maybe. Yeah. I mean, this is probably the best arguments you've had so far, Stephen. Of the
wait a minute. Why didn't he just pardon? Because I don't know how many people. Maybe a dozen perhaps in the United States. 10. I have to imagine there's probably one or two other people out there who were prosecuted under similar circumstances compared to Hunter. Why didn't he just do a blanket? Like these are just bullshit charges. Like, would you have
blanket pardon for what?
For
the gun charge and
the gun form and the tax charges
for Hunter.
Yeah, like he specifically pardoned Hunter, right? Not just everyone who was caught on.
Oh no, because those charges I think the charges are not necessarily bad in and of themselves. I just think that some of these are usually things that are like accessory charges. Like if you show up at a crime scene and somebody's done some fuck shit and they're like high and they have a gun, then you might fucking throw on a 4473 violation.
Those tax charges do happen. I mean, like people are charged for that stuff.
Yeah, so it's not depending.
So
but I'm just saying, Josiah, those particular, like for instance, let's say that Hunter had been caught with a crime with his gun, right? And then they also threw this on. If he pardons that gets a lot weirder in my opinion. I'm like, are they going after him politically? Maybe, but like, damn, come on, dude, you robbed a place. Like, what the fuck did you expect?
So is it the improbability of the charges themselves or the motivation behind pursuing the improbable charges? If that makes any sense. Like,
but generally, when highly improbable charges are brought up, like generally at your prosecutorial level, usually you're like, we're probably just not going to pursue this because it's.
You got to be careful how much power you give that though, because I mean, the New York charges, the way that they were done against Trump, those are novel. The applications of some of the statutes in the Jack Smith indictment against Trump, not the Mar-a-Lago one, those are novel applications.
That would be great. And if I was arbitrarily picking and choosing why I think some novel charges are appropriate, because when you say the charges against Trump are novel, January 6th was novel. Having a gun and doing drugs, that's not novel.
I'm just saying, be careful about how much power you give. All right.
And they already have that power. They already have that power. They already have that power. So I don't know what you're saying. Be careful how much. Wait, be careful. Don't give the prosecutor the power to exercise prosecutorial discretion. Okay.
He's attacking me, chat. He's attacking me. Listen, you made some gooder arguments this time around. I think if it were so egregious, like the example of the fire. What would you say? The red lights.
Not even so egregious, but like if it was like so, like if. Oh wait, I'm sorry. Were you saying for Josiah? Or you?
No, you.
Oh yeah, no, well, because I'm already okay with the pardon. But I was asking if you guys would be okay with the pardon if it was so egregious on that side.
Well, if it were, let me ask you, because Stephen might be persuading me here, because I didn't really give a shit to begin with.
Come,
but now I'm curious.
Child.
No, don't be persuaded. Don't defend
How do you balance? Biden used a presidential power to benefit a loved one, which I
separate
think
it. Yeah, I know what you're getting at.
Because to ameliorate a corrupt prosecution in the first place. So is the obligation that Hunter Biden is supposed to simply be a victim of political corruption?
Yep. Let's get out Pisco. It's so slimy. He's about to give you the most snake answer ever. Tell him, Pisco. It's a snake answer.
Wait, all right. Listen to me, all right? So I think the grounds for the pardon are different than the procedural defects of it. And I think the chief procedural defect of it, I know there's no official procedure, is the fact that Biden himself came to that determination.
So Pisco thinks that if he would have entrusted a third party with the decision, that somehow it makes it magically better.
Well, we do that in other cases. No one wants the conflicted party to be in charge of the decision if he's conflicted. That's why we have rules of like recusal.
No. To be clear, no. Hold on.
That's what recusal rules
stop.
for.
there is no case in all of our system where there is one party who might be conflicted, so he gets to choose another party to make that decision.
No, there are. If a judge is conflicted in a case, he could recuse himself from the decision, the whatever decision that is, right?
But he can't handpick like the next person who also might be super interested in the next thing, right? Like I imagine there's like a line of judges, or there's elected officials or elected judges or whatever.
He couldn't farm out someone independent who had the trust to come to an independent determination. He couldn't have found someone to make that determination.
Who? Remember, keep in mind, we live in a country, we live in a country where apparently you can't find 12 jurors to make a decision about anything relating to the president, so he has infinite criminal immunity. Who would we find that would be neutral on the Hunter Biden thing?
Maybe some sitting federal district judge? I don't know. Find some...
A federal judge who's appointed by a Republican or a Democrat?
Pisco,
find some arbitrator. Find some.
You want to go into the jungle and look for Ted fucking Kaczynski or whatever, the Unabomber, to find something. There's like a whole a lifetime series of adventure for Joe Biden trying to find somebody who hasn't heard about Burisma or Hunter Biden.
So what do you want to do if Trump feels the same way? If Trump feels the same way that his family members were done harshly,
that's done. He would already do it. That's not even a question. He would already do it.
I'm not asking what he would do. What would you ask him to do if, hey, maybe there's an argument here? You would ask him to recuse himself from the pardon decision. I don't think that's too much to ask for.
Just how you go.
Pisco. So if you, I'm thinking about this. Okay, so your issue you're saying is more procedural. The fact that you really made the decision. So what if ethicists came back and said, Mr. President, the legal basis for issuing the pardon, it's true in the sense that this was clearly politically motivated. These charges are very rarely brought. But we would advise you to not issue the pardon because he's your son. And it could be perceived as an abuse of power. I could see White House ethicists giving the president that advice. What should he do?
I would disagree with that, yeah. I would disagree. Because then he does not have a fair opportunity for a pardon, and you're running into the problem that Stephen's identifying. I agree that there's a problem here.
What? You would say
I would disagree with those ethicists. I think that's bad because you're depriving an individual of an opportunity for a pardon that he may in fact deserve. The fact that it's a high-profile individual, the fact that it's Biden, it is one of the reasons he was targeted. And so Stephen makes that was one of the things I was saying. I hadn't really thought about it that way, and Stephen is absolutely correct on that point. So I think that the problem isn't necessarily the basis of the pardon. It is the process by which the pardon was given. And I think that I just don't feel good about the person who is so connected, like irreconcilably connected. If this were, for example, a judge who was overseeing the sentence of his son, you could never say that he could do that, right, Josiah? You would never allow that to happen.
Would I say that a judge could? No. Yeah, I mean,
so that's
a general proposition, as a general heuristic, I would say that that's a really bad idea.
So I'm not even that like perturbed.
Oh my
by...
God! You know what? Oh my God! I'm sorry. Hold on. I got it. I'm done. I got it all. I already got you halfway there, Josiah. I'm gonna get you the rest of the way. Ready? I'm throwing out the second row. Okay, you ready?
You're edging me, and you're gonna get me all the way there. All right.
If we feel like
convincing that.
if we feel like a pardon is really improperly done, that the president is wielding his power in an irresponsible way, well, then we have a way to hold him accountable for that, and that's impeachment.
Oh my God.
Got him.
There it is.
No, that's not a got him.
That's easy. It's super easy. Yeah, if he's abusing his
pardon, that's stupid. I'm going to go a little harder on you now.
That's stupid. That's stupid. Okay, wait. Yeah, okay, in that case, outline me even a rough process whereby I would find a neutral party.
My double standard. This is my double standard again.
What do you mean? Where's the neutral party that's going to make a decision on pardoning the president's son?
Yeah, you just randomly draw from a hat any American citizen.
No,
I don't know, bro. You get a consultant. You get someone to get a person.
I'm just saying. I imagine I would
get a legal scholar. Draw from a hat. Do anything other than just be yourself. Like, why is it so outside of your mind that you could pick somebody, even if it's another Democrat?
Because the idea of typically in arbitration for international trade, at least, the way that it usually works is when two parties are at ends with each other, somebody picks a guy and then another guy picks a guy. So those two are there, and then both of those guys will pick a guy. You have a panel of 3 judges. That's one way to do this. But you would never have a procedure where one guy's like, okay, well, I'm too biased, so I need to recuse myself. So I'm going to pick this guy right over here. You just reductio or whatever the problem. It's that guy that he's if I don't trust Biden to be able to fairly pardon his son, why would I trust him to pick somebody to decide if he should fairly pardon his son?
Wait, but we do this with the Department of Justice all the time. The president is the head of the Department of Justice. There's enough of an independent process.
Special counsel to pardon his son.
Hang on a second. Come on, you guys can't believe it. Now you're going through like this kind of adolescent unitary theory.
Stop. I want to hear what you were just about to say because it was about to be ridiculous. What were you going to say? That we have
you guys are acting like unitary theorists, where it's so conflicted that the president's the head of this organization, so you can never have independence of the judicial branch. Sorry, the Department of Justice, because it's the president's at the head of it. It's not the case.
Hold on. The pardon is a power that is expressly and explicitly delegated solely to the president of the United States. The Department of Justice is a department created and authorized by Congress to operate in the way and manner that it does. It's a totally different thing. If the pardon power was created by Congress in a different way that had like ways prescribed to it for how it would work, then fine, that's one thing.
Or that power could be delegated. I mean, listen. At the end of the day, I think that I'm successfully persuaded that if a prosecution is brought corruptly, and I think you can make the argument that this one was, that Biden is permitted. I mean, obviously constitutionally he is too, but why should Hunter Biden suffer the consequences of a political prosecution and Biden be prohibited from granting clemency or granting a pardon in this?
Yeah, but like we just don't let the people conflicted to come to those determinations. What if someone took? Do you guys agree, by the way, that if it weren't Trump, he wouldn't have been charged in New York?
Was that a novel case? Had anybody ever been?
Hold on. No. So to be clear, and I understand. Okay, Pisco, I understand you're younger. What are you, like 26? You're like a kid. Okay. When we say, would somebody else have been charged? The problem is that Trump legitimately did a lot of fucking crazy things. And I think we look back and we go, okay, now the New York case, would we really charge somebody if they had kind of like laundered money or taken money a bit through their political campaign to pay off a porn star to kill a story about them cheating on their like 4-month haven't given birth wife? Like, yes, Republicans would throw this person to the wolves. It would be a insane, scandalous case. We're still talking about Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton. Okay, so I think they would have.
We charge people with tax crimes. We charge them.
No, not typically, not like this. No. Generally, if you've already made arrangements, you've already paid it off or whatever. I mean, we can look at Roger Stone. Roger Stone owed more money than Hunter Biden and was engaged in actual willful tax evasion through a business. And did I say Hunter Biden or did I say Roger Stone?
Roger Stone.
Yeah, Roger Stone didn't have any criminal charges thrown at him. It didn't even start as a criminal case. It was a civil action immediately.
So if Trump had been charged for like tax fraud of the same level, like didn't report this amount of income from one of his properties, you would say he shouldn't be charged with tax fraud? Nah, little gup.
So here, the funny thing is, Pisco's trying to catch me because he knows some case, so I'm just going to automatically disagree with you because I know you're trying to trap me. So yeah, he should be charged for whatever case you're referring to that I'm not aware of, so fuck you.
Yeah, bro, like, yeah, man, I just don't think that, I don't think that we should just be discounting these prosecutions just because it wouldn't have happened but for him being Hunter Biden.
The issue that I'm having is that like it sucks and it feels really shitty to say this, okay? But for as much as I used to say like, oh, the institutions, right? And the Republicans say the institutions are all corrupt. When the Republicans say the institutions are all corrupt, what they're saying is that since they're corrupt, I'm going to be corrupt. And then they do corrupt things, and it makes it very, very hard to evaluate like the new world that we're now a part of. So like in a perfect world, like I'm sure there are crimes that you could charge Trump with. I'm sure if we go back and look, I mean, you and I both agree. I think, and just everybody agrees. It sucks that the New York case was like the first case, that ended up having the only case. I'm sorry, did I say first? The only case, or half the case, because now the sentence is never going to happen, right? That does suck because it's a bit more of an out there case, but like everything else is like it can't be that you think I'm going to go on a fishing expedition. Show me the equivalent to the Hillary Clinton email thing. Show me the equivalent Benghazi investigation. Show me the equivalent Ken Starr, Bill Clinton investigation. Show me the equivalent Hunter Biden documents, her report that I didn't read that you're so mad about. Show me the equivalent on the what's the equivalent? Russiagate? What was the outcome of that? First of all, we got credible indictments. We got good people that were indicted. We made money back on the case because of the seizure of Manafort's assets. And not only that, we had a whole ass report from Durham saying, well, look, we've also, even though they did that investigation, because the Russiagate, okay, the Mueller investigation was way more legitimate than all of the Hillary Clinton email bullshit. What the fuck where was the FBI analysis after that? Like, show me the equivalent action on the Democrat side. When can we go fishing?
They do have things they point to. They point to the Letitia James lawsuit. They point to...
No, stop doing that. Why are you doing that? We already have one guy, Artemis Fowl, to do that. Don't give me the things that the retards say. Well, they look like that. You know Letitia James is not even close. It's not even remotely close to this. It's not even... I don't even want to say close. Fuck, I fell into a piece of shit. It's not even close. That's material of a different thing. It's not even remotely in the same type of thing.
Let me run the argument. The argument goes, all of these institutions say they would have done deals with Trump even if they knew that the properties were the value that they were. They say that. So what's the harm? What harm was done?
I can't compare it to the particular Trump tax case because I'm not familiar with that one. But I'm curious, what are the fishing expeditions that are similar on the Democratic side? If you want to go to New York State and say that that's the, I mean, what about on a federal level, which is kind of where I was more focused on before, but I'm sure that on a state level, I'm sure we can find a lot of things that probably disagree. I'm sure even if we go through some of the Trump case, I'm sure there are ones where like, this is probably bullshit, or I don't know how much this matters. I'm sure there probably is.
I'm going to say, one of the big complaints from MAGA people is that he is the most investigated person that there has ever been in history. And I do agree, in terms of him being investigated, Trump has been investigated probably way, way, way more than any other human being in the history of the world.
That's probably true, but there are two things at play here. One is just because this is true, anybody that is a billionaire, I'm sure, has a substantial amount of that, well, not in per capita them, but pays a lot of money to legal representation, always has their taxes audited every single year, always has like multiple lawsuits that they're facing at any given point in time related to their business. Like, that's just the fact of being that large of a business, right? This is true of every large business, true of every billionaire, for sure. Number one, okay? Number two, and I think it was Barr that said this, Trump invites it on himself. And there is an unbelievable amount of pity for a man who will constantly go over and over and over again and say, it's like the guy stepping on the bike rake. The system, I hate the whole system. And I'm tearing all these motherfuckers. Why don't these guys like me at all? I don't care about the whole government. I'm going to take them all. I can't believe they won't do anything with me or work with me at all. I'm going to campaign all these fucking losers. And I don't know why they won't sign any legislation. Like, bro, what the fuck do you expect?
Listen.
Hold on. The amount of investigations is not indicative of the investigations themselves being wrong.
I agree. I'm giving a little bit of pushback just because some of the stuff about the Hunter Biden investigation, I think there deserved to be an investigation on some of that, right?
I think the only issue I have is that Letitia James and the the DA campaigned vocally saying that they were going to initiate fishing.
I disagree with that, but I just want to ask Stephen this question: do you disagree that there was even a DOJ investigation into the Burisma matter?
I don't. Wait, first of all, was there actually?
There was.
What was the result of that?
They didn't bring any charges or anything.
How do we know there was?
So we know that there was a FCPA investigation into Mykolaiv Zlochevsky.
Okay.
And opened under the Biden administration. By the way, that's a really great point for bringing up.
I hate to interrupt, but
yeah, go to sleep. Get the fuck out of here, dude. Now. Literally nobody cares. Love you, though.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks for joining.
Love you guys.
Hey, love you. There was an FC. This is a great point to bring up. By the way, people say that the Biden administration was trying to cover for Burisma. In a letter, and I can send you the letter that Chuck Grassley sent. It indicated, and it's been confirmed, that the Obama DOJ, at the relevant time, right after this supposed corrupt quid pro quo, opened a bribery investigation. FCPA is the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Opened a bribery investigation into the founder of Burisma, Mykolaiv Zlochevsky. So if anyone ever says the Obama administration, Biden was trying to sweep for Burisma, you can point to the fact that they opened a criminal investigation into the head of Burisma at the same time. So that investigation happened. Then there were specific investigations into Hunter Biden and Burisma under Trump and Bill Barr. So my question is don't you think would there be enough of a predicate to do an investigation at all into Hunter Biden? I think
I don't necessarily. I don't think. I don't think I necessarily mind. I don't know if I've ever had a strong sense they shouldn't have even started that investigation. I don't. But it does feel like
a fishing expedition thing a little bit. If you're
what do you mean?
Okay, if you're okay with some of the investigations, it kind of undermines the fishing expedition stuff a little bit. Just saying.
I don't think so at all. I don't know what the regulation on this would be, and it doesn't even feel right. I don't even thought this through. It's probably stupid. I just don't know how I feel about like House investigations on anything. maybe Jim Jordan.
Not House, but like DOJ.
No. I understand what you're saying, but I feel like a lot of these have been pushed and drawn out because of all of these like fucking House committee reports and all these Jim Jordan
that is true.
and all this
pressure.
Yeah, like if it was just we had that DOJ thing that they investigated Hunter Biden on that shit or whatever, and then it was whatever. It's like, okay, right? Did anything come of that? Is that where the tax stuff and everything ultimately came from, or
some of it? But I just want to say I agree with you to a certain extent, which is that so a lot of public reporting on Burisma brought up the tax stuff because the tax stuff relates to Burisma income. Mm-hmm. It's not related to like bribery or FARA violations or anything. It's related to the fact he didn't report the Burisma income. And I agree that a lot of this was politically pushed after the fact when Trump was telling his DOJ to charge the Bidens, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I don't like that because so many of these things all get like thrown together. I think it was Connor earlier that was saying like, oh, because he got convicted of these crimes, we know that he was stealing that illegal money from Burisma to pay off his family members. Yeah. And it's like, the fact that these are even fucking connected. And I don't know if I'll read through this because honestly, Pisco, oh my God, dude. I came out of 2020 thinking I was lied to about so much fucking Trump shit because of the crazy liberal media. And then at first I was mad and then I was like, oh fuck, they did exaggerate a lot. And now I was like, go back and read through everything. I don't know if I just wasn't literate or I couldn't fucking read or I don't know how fucking retarded I am. Bro, have you listened to the fucking Giuliani conversation? The one that preceded the Trump? What the fuck? How is he not like in a video game? Sorry. Like what? That's insane. He's a private citizen.
They sent him and his cronies to Ukraine literally to launder fake allegations. Like that's what the first impeachment was about.
For nothing, as a private citizen, as a private, non-government, non-appointed, not anything, as just a friend of Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, they fired. So they fired the ambassador to Ukraine. They were like legitimately pressuring, even before Zelensky. They were pressuring Prosecutor General Lutsenko. They were to literally file charges against Hunter Biden to reopen investigation. They were pressuring President Poroshenko. They were pressuring Zelensky a ton.
Yeah, and Giuliani in this call is literally saying it's not even like, and because I used to think, because I haven't dug super deep, and it's like, oh, maybe Rob makes some points, whatever. But like Giuliani's on the call, not saying like we really want you to investigate. We hope you look at it. Giuliani's literally saying like it would be really good. Yes, you need to publicly announce, please. You need to publicly announce that you are investigating. Like what the fuck?
That's why he was fucking impeached. He should have been removed for that. He should have been fucking out of the presidency. That by itself should be impeachable and removable, and he was impeached for it. And it's even worse than that. It wasn't just he was pressuring foreign prosecutors. We later find out, by the way, that this theory that he was bribing Zelensky was literally a Russia propaganda campaign. We charged a guy, Smirnov. Did you remember the Smirnov indictment? So Alexander Smirnov, this should be part of your thing. If you search Smirnov indictment, we literally charged a Russian agent for lying to the FBI over this specific over the Giuliani stuff. Like you memory hold this, but
did this come from the name of that fucking this form or whatever? What is it? The confidential informant form? Yeah. And this guy was just saying,
So he was, this Russian agent was aligning with what Giuliani was talking about and was giving fake tips to the FBI that the Bidens were being bribed by Burisma. So it was all done at the same exact time. And Trump pressured Bill Barr to open up a specific channel within the Department of Justice.
Like the Office of Special Plans, because he had his own little thing to get unverified, unvetted,
and literally Giuliani was sending all this information to the Department of Justice to go after the Bidens in America, as well as in Ukraine. So this is one of the most corrupt stories and no one really has the knowledge of it. But like, yes, Giuliani was being used by Trump to go, he's already done this, to go after the Bidens politically on nothing, just to damage their credibility and to get to dig up dirt, which is all based on a Burisma. That's why I started with Connor by saying you disavow all this stuff, right? And he's a cuck, so I said yes, but it sounds like he's trafficking in it. And people, where it starts is people like Rob Noor don't come up with these by themselves. They take it from a reporter named John Solomon, fake news propagandist. And he's spread this narrative in his little thing, John Solomon, and this other person, Miranda Devine. They push out this, they misinterpret leaks. They misinterpret, what is it called? Oh my God. The requests to the government agencies, they're called.
FISA? No. Wait. Don't look at chat. Wait, we know this.
We know this.
FOIA.
FOIA.
Yeah.
Sorry, FOIA. Yeah. They misinterpret FOIA requests. So they take things out of context and they pretend that things aren't the way they are. And that's the Rob Noor stick has been stealing from John Sullivan and promulgating this bereavement talking point, which is totally debunked, total bullshit.
Part of that is the House reports that come out are actually those are insanely hilariously crazy stupid. Yeah. It's it feels really bad to say, but I have to tell people somebody's like, oh, I found this thing and it's like a .gov and it's from the House of Representatives. Like, hold on, bro. That doesn't mean fuck all. You have to read the underlying material, because if this is coming out of a House Republican committee, chances are a lot of it is just bullshit. The fact they would publish hundreds of pages on the impeachment inquiry or whatever bullshit and then not even fucking recommend anything and pretend that they can still call them the Biden crime family. What the fuck that's insane.
It's insane. And remember, they lie about stuff too. They bring in Devin Nunes. Devin Nunes was Hunter Biden's business partner. Mm-hmm. Devin Nunes says in no uncertain terms, Joe Biden wasn't involved in anything. I have absolutely zero evidence linking Joe Biden to anything improper. Hunter Biden, I have no evidence that Hunter Biden called Joe Biden about anything related to substantive things related to Burisma. And the Republicans act like that's some bombshell in favor of the Biden crime family narrative, when they're literally saying, Devin Nunes, who has his he's not a favorable witness to Hunter Biden because he's just talking shit and he's revealing stuff. But none of that is getting to Joe Biden. None of that is showing any impropriety or any criminal actions whatsoever. Yeah. And they're acting like it's a big bombshell.
I mean, it's the same thing as the Twitter files. That proved that the FBI told them to, remove the story, even though, you said, you quoted this as well. They literally say, maybe the FBI's lack of involvement was the problem here.
The problem.
Was it Devin Nunes or Devin Archer?
Oh my God, Devin Archer.
It was Archer. Yeah, I was gonna say Nunes. Wait, are you sure?
That didn't sound right to me. I was confused for a second.
Good call, Devin Archer. Yeah, all these names, but Devin Nunes didn't have a memo about Russia
or whoever.
I think what I don't like is that Pisco at the end, it's the problem is that I don't like it because it sounds like wacky conspiracy stuff, because these are schemes. I think you're the one that gave me that term. This is a scheme, I think. Or it was either you or somebody else over the J60 elections. This was actually a sophisticated scheme, and it sounds conspiratorial in nature because it is. It is a conspiracy. It's a huge plan, but it's also all super public. None of the claims, there's not a jump in any of the shit that, everything we talked about is all super open. I have a recording of fucking Giuliani on the phone with this guy. None of this is conspiratorial at all. But they don't believe any of this. But meanwhile, one phone call from Victoria Nuland. That one phone call where she's like, we'd prefer this leader over that. That's enough to prove that the United States instigated the 2014 revolution in Ukraine. What the fuck?
Yeah, that is a little insane.
That's what we need. Hang on a second, Artemis. It was you, mere hours ago, that was saying that the start of the investigation of Russiagate was the Steele dossier.
I still hold that position because they use that as the basis for their warrant. The underlying material.
The warrant comes after the start of the investigation.
Yeah, but I don't classify that when I said it. If you want to say yes, theoretically the official start of the investigation was before, but the actual gathering of information took place when the FISA warrants were starting to be.
Do you think that all they did was issue FISA warrants into Carter Page? They did a lot more stuff than that. That's
they did fabricate evidence for another FISA warrant.
Oh my God, Steven, this is why we need you fully activated.
I used to say this shit because I was I heard it said so much, but now obviously in my voluntary, I like to not exaggerate. I like to go back and read everything to make sure I'm correct. It is actually true. She gets no credit for this. Hillary Clinton really did do a fucking an 11-hour hearing on the Benghazi shit.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy. Donald Trump hasn't answered for a single fucking question on any of the things that he's related to being accused. Hillary Clinton did this hearing for 11 fucking hours. What the 11 hours? What
not
the
just
fuck? 11 hours in front of the whole country on some crazy, but what the Sorry.
Not just a normal hearing, an accusation throwing hearing, as in straight up visceral,
the type of hearing where if she says the wrong thing, that could be her ass. Not oh, you're never gonna be in the State Department, but there are criminal charges and maybe you're gonna get fucking executed, right? And she did this shit. Oh my God, that's insane. Oh, okay. Sorry.
At that point in time, I would have agreed with what she was doing. Things I wouldn't say I recall anything at that point because they were actively looking for something, even a perjury trap to get her on.
This country needs you, Stephen.
11 hours.
Fully activated, fully engaged, because it's gonna get a lot worse. Shit's about to get funky.
Oh no, you don't want to have him activated. He might be up in the Senate committee hearings.
No.
Actually testify.
We need you like pouring through all the crazy shit that happens and having your own narratives, having your own minions, putting forward like your own versions of John Solomon, where we're actually getting accurate information.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, bro. I mean, like,
no, fuck. I agree. Yeah, we're working on it. Okay.
All right. Wait, hold on. How old are you again, Destiny?
I'm 35. No, I'm an old man.
I mean, you're old enough to run for office, right?
Yeah, I'll get right on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to sleep. I love you guys.
Hey,
thanks.
Love you guys.
Yeah. Be careful.
See ya.
Bye. I feel like learning. I always tell you guys. Somebody posted on the subreddit that they had to take a break from online stuff. You shouldn't do politics, but if it generally just upsets you, you should never do that. Like if you watch my stream a lot, or if you're on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever the fuck social media, if it's like legitimately you're like going to sleep mad because of shit, you're actually like upset, then I think you should disconnect. It's not worth it. There's no payoff there for you. Man, dude, digging into every time I like open another. It's like in Zelda where you go back to older areas, but you have like the hook shot or the mirror shield or some shit, and you can like do or the hover boots. I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know, bro. When I go and I look over some of this shit, I'm like, the fuck is insane. There's so much of this. My God. Okay. I might stream again tonight. I don't know if I'm gonna sleep. Fuck it. We'll see. I should at least finish listening to this, bro.
Try to schedule a meeting where we can get together. Yeah, I'd like to say that, first of all, I can say that obviously it's our principle, and we in so form will be make reforms in our power, that all the facts, all the things which connected for so important for us, relationship with United States will be deeply in all details investigated. And believe me that I am absolutely sure that you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct, and you are a person with so big experience. You know all these people to whom you listed, Mr. Yushchenko, Mr. Poroshenko. What the difference between our presidents and all these people, who, of course, I know personally because I finished the Institute of International Relations, and this same institute finished by Mr. Poroshenko, just by Mr. Saakashvili, by the way. But the difference is following. We coming to the policy not be absolutely connected to any oligarchs, to any people, because we have our own business. We are working, and our motivation, it's really change Ukraine. And we wanted to play any games around some investigations, some very important questions, and we are absolutely have opportunity, because you know that not a lot of people have so independence and so rights to be open. If the people come to the power, be connected, be obliged to somebody, it's difficult. It's happened with Mr. Yushchenko, it's happened with Mr. Poroshenko and many others. We not oblige anybody here. We not connect, we not linked. And absolutely our president is the person who can make and build his strategy of Ukraine. And I absolutely sure that as soon as the dates of the President Zelensky upcoming visit to the United States will be confirmed, I'm ready to be personally assume control of the preparation. And of course, I will be ready to come, and we can personally sitting and in detail discuss all the questions, all this investigation. Because I can give you a couple. It's in our conversation. And of course, in this same, yeah. Andre, I think it would be good because there are a couple of things that I think would be helpful.
You need to say something publicly, okay? You have to say it publicly, and make sure you do lots of investigations, and also say them publicly, and then make sure that you say them publicly.
I want to share with you that are we really should talk in person about. And I think it would be good if I can give you a couple of days, call you back or through Kurt. It'd be good if we could have just an hour together. You know, you, me, and Kurt, or whomever else. It doesn't matter who's there. Just that we talk personally. Because there are a couple of things I can tell you that I think would make this much, much easier. Because I want to, as I told Kurt,
a couple things I can tell you, meaning unverified, unvetted, bullshit-ass accusations that'll help you make a public statement.
This whole situation is a little beyond me. It's not just me. I think I know how to solve it. But I got to explain it to you, okay?
Mm-hmm. Can I jump in here and make a couple of suggestions to that? One thing, Mr. Mayor, you may not be aware of is President Zelensky and President Trump may be speaking on the telephone this week. A congratulatory phone call, which I think is a very good thing. Good to congratulate. Just have a tremendous parliamentary election victory, which gives him the power to move some of this now. And I think also an opportunity, Andre, for President Zelensky to confirm just what we're talking about, that he has no relationship with anything that happened in the past, and he is committed to changing Ukraine and to investigating anything that needs to be investigated.
Absolutely. And I can confirm that I'm ready immediately after this conversation and confirmation of the visiting to be in Washington or in New York and sitting discussed in detail all this.
Yes, good. You were about to say, Mr. Mayor, what you were going to say?
Kurt, I was about to sort of follow up on what you just said, which is if he could say something like that, his own in conversation, it would go a long way. It would go something like that. Kurt, I was about to sort of follow up on what you just said, which is if he could say something like that, his own in conversation, it would go a long way. It would go a long way with the president to solve the problems.
Right.
Now, with the issue, with a question, let's not call it a problem, let's call it a question in the president's mind. But I should emphasize to you, it's not put there by me or just by me. And I'm not the most significant purveyor of it. I mean, I can't see what I've advised him. But
it's so crazy that this fucking guy went from prosecuting the mob to being a fucking mobster. Like, it's so as much of a pathetic mobster as he was.
I can tell you, I generally think it's good if people talk, even if they disagree with each other. So I'm not telling the president what to say. I'm just saying, if that's the way he feels and that's something he could say, I think it would shorten a lot of discussion to have with everybody.
I think so too. And so I hope that this congratulatory phone call goes forward and that President Zelensky...
I'm sure that Zelensky will say that. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Second,
that would believe me, Andre, that would be good for all of us. We'd move it along very fast. And I can assure you that as far as I'm concerned, I think they should talk this week. I've already said that. But I just want to emphasize, I can't control that completely.
No, but I'll weigh in on that as well. I think it is good, likely, but I will press that as well. And second, Andre...
You can say that we talked about it too if you want. Okay?
I will. If I may, I will. Thank you.
Yeah, you're certainly free to use me to be helpful in getting the conversation to take place.
Okay, very good. Then second, Andre, you have some dates that you can suggest. If you're making a trip to the U.S. After such a call, send us some dates, and we'll...
Also, I can tell you, Andre, at the end of this month, the beginning of next month, if this is easier,
okay.
I'm taking a brief trip to London and a somewhat longer trip to Madrid. And I just may have to go to Albania. So there might be a couple of options that are a lot closer for you that I can give you.
You see, for me, it's not a problem. If we decided, let's meet in Madrid.
Okay.
Okay. I will come, especially to meet with you. Okay, it's for me. It's okay.
I'll give you my schedule.
Okay.
All right.
And when I have the opportunity to visit and United States and Spain, to meet with you in Madrid, and then decided and to go for the preparation of the visit to go to Washington as well.
Excellent. Well, I think this was a very useful conversation.
Thank you very much. For me too, it's very important.
I'm glad we had this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. And
thank you.
Yes, my pleasure.
Have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Kurt. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.
All as a private citizen, right? July 2019, Rudy Giuliani never had an official position in the United States federal government. It's just fucking wild, dude. There's not an actual recording of the Trump call, right? There's not. I'm just nuts about it. Oh my goodness. Was RFK crazy or always crazy as fuck? Or did he always do a Giuliani? I'm not sure. I thought we watched something of RFK like 20 years ago where he was surprisingly reasonable, but I'm not. Yeah, I don't know, man. What is this Noah Smith tweet? Is this a real tweet? This isn't real, is it? This is like a troll, because we've talked to this guy, right? This is the Noah guy with the bunnies, right? Look at the quote tweets. He retweeted the super long one. Look at the retweets that he made after. Oh, fuck. Hold on. Elon Musk will be an excellent choice Secretary of Defense. Musk's track record expects to demonstrate ability to innovate and push the boundaries of technology. The DoD faces major challenges in building and maintaining technological superiority, particularly in areas like cyberspace, AI, space capabilities, and drone warfare. Musk's expertise would drive advancements and ensure. can't tell if this is a troll or if this is... Why are people laughing? Do I sell the Zen book to a laptop? Fuck no. He does a podcast with a right-wing tech bro, and they've always talked about how Elon is like the chance for Trump to be pushed in a like pro-deregulatory, pro-tech position or direction. I don't know. Okay. I love you guys. It's been fun. Ripping on a cappuccino, Jesus. I might be back in a couple hours. We'll see. Be careful, guys. Rip on.